All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Joe White, and I'm part of the PEIA Task Force and the Public Outreach Committee. We're going to take just a few minutes, and we're going to let our colleagues introduce themselves. I don't know if this please.
Get a little closer too.
We're going to go down the line and let everyone introduce themselves, and I'll start with ladies first.
Good evening, I'm Sarita Becca, and I'm a 6th grade teacher in Raleigh County.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sherry Young. I'm the physician on the group, and I'm Vice President of the West Virginia State Medical Association.
Good evening, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. My name is Mitch Carmichael, and I have the honor of being the Senate President.
And I'm Dale Lee. I'm the president of the West Virginia Education Association and a high school special ed math teacher at Princeton High School on leave to serve as president.
Okay, now we'll get started. Once again, I'm Joe White. I'm Executive Director of the West Virginia School Service Personnel Association. I want to take just a few moments to thank each and every one of you for coming out here this evening and giving up your time to come in and share with us some of the issues that you're having with PEIA, and hopefully that you'll share with us some of the fixes that you could recommend. Several of the faces in here is familiar, so I will probably mess up on a few of your names, but I'll do my best to get them out there. So here's what we're going to do. We do not actually have a set time limit to speak. We just ask that each one of you remember that there's speakers after you. So far, we've got about 23 signed up to speak. So without further ado, let's get started. Sue Kelly, you're up front first.
Thank you. My name is Sue Kelly. I'm a retiree from Fairmont State. I'm a member of AFT, and I will remember in November, of course. I have come to PEIA meetings for about 20 years now, and have seen nothing change except for the worse every year. There are added co-pays, there are added costs, there are fewer things covered, and it has become a shadow of the great insurance that it used to be. What I am most concerned about at this point is the people who are retired who worked 20 years ago and were promised good insurance in exchange for no raises, for working for no raises. Those people are now living on minimal incomes, and every copay that is raised, every single prescription that is raised hurts. Seriously hurts. Yes. Thank you. Yes. When people for the last 15 years at these meetings have talked about deciding between food and medicine or seeing the doctor, it makes me want to puke. This state has great riches at its fingertips. We could use a severance tax on oil and gas. We could use marijuana. We could use sources of funding that would help the people of West Virginia. What I have seen in West Virginia for the past 23 years is a growing philosophy of austerity. People don't deserve to be helped. They don't deserve food. They don't deserve SNAP. They don't deserve CHIP. They don't deserve anything. Meanwhile, we will give them jobs that at most pay $9 an hour if they're lucky. We will give them jobs that are part-time now. We will give them jobs that no one can live on any longer, and we will expect them in addition to pay their insurance. We will expect them to be responsible for their health in a state that is polluted beyond belief and is about to, with oil and gas, pass a level of pollution that not only will kill the planet, but is going to make us Cancer Alley all the way through, just like Louisiana. And you cannot ask people to run or work on a treadmill when what they inhale and what they drink is going to make them sick. Therefore, PEIA needs to step up its game. It needs to be funded, and it's going to need to be available at high levels to cover cancers that are going to be developing, especially childhood cancers. There are now texts out in all sorts of ways of the steps in which children will develop pulmonary cancers, right? As a result of fracking. Therefore, PEIA is going to have to step up. There are entire towns in Ohio where kids have step 1 permanent bleeding noses, right? So PEIA will have to step away from austerity. It is going to have to find a permanent source of funding. It is going to have to stop thinking in terms of austerity and that we don't need to provide anything for anybody that we don't have to provide. It is going to have to stop listening to Washington that just wants to kick everybody off of insurance, they announced last night, who has a pre-existing condition. I'm already paying more as a retiree, and this is just starting. The people of West Virginia who have given up their health, who have given up their land, who have given up the possibility of safe survival deserve a funding source and insurance source for PEIA. Listen to the drums. We don't want you taking money from oil and gas. I'm speaking to politicians here. We want you thinking about the people of West Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 15 or so seats up front if some of you all would like to have a seat. We've got plenty of seats up front here if you need to sit down. Up next is Nellie Osborne.
Thank you. I'm Nellie Osborne. I am a retired teacher after about 35 years of service. I also represent Marion County Retired Educators Association. As I am listening to what's coming out in the newspapers about these hearings, the buzzword I'm hearing scares me to death, and that's privatization. And it's the one thing that I don't want to see happen, and the one thing that I don't want to hear. I was in an auto accident earlier this year and made a trip to the ER. Thankfully, everything is fine. But just for an example, it went to PEIA first. They allowed about a $5,000 charge for an ER visit, $780, $655, of course, of which I was responsible for because that's part of my copay or my out-of-pocket deductible. I kind of get confused. It all comes from the same pocket, but anyway. So after a lot of paperwork and phone calls and got it rerouted to my insurance carrier through our auto insurance, they paid the doctor that saw me for maybe a total of 4 minutes, $1,329. I'm sure PEIA would have cut that down to maybe $300. And they paid the ER of about a $5,000 charge, $4,486. Now, if any of you are businessmen or women, are any of you businessmen? And you're in business to make money, correct? So if there is privatization, what happens right now is the state pays our claims. They do hire a company to do the paperwork, but basically the state pays for the cost. If we're doing privatization, then they're paying or we're paying, and I can kind of see where that's headed because the state's trying to save money by what they're doing now, which means someone is paying not only for the cost of health care, but also for the profit that the private company would make. Is that a fair assessment if you're a businessman? Okay. And I'm looking at the charges that were on the original bill that came just from my recent visit, knowing full well that if I didn't have insurance of any kind, there would have been no one stepping in to say, you don't have to pay the full amount, it's all coming out of your pocket. Other problem being, I'm a retired teacher. We have gotten no COLA, no raise of any kind. That was not part of what we were promised. However, we were promised health care. So I had consulted a financial advisor after I retired who informed me that for every 10 years that I was retired, I would be losing 25% of my buying power with the money that I was getting, which, since I've been retired 8 years now, I can see his point. I think I've probably lost that much in 8 years. So the problem is, privatization is not a solution for any of us that I can see. As I said, it's going to raise the cost for everyone. So I'm looking at you needing to come up with a totally different plan. And I agree with the lady that just spoke in that we have the resources, and the resources are coming from this state and should support the people of the state. I have friends and relatives in Alaska, and they have done a very nice job of doing that there. I think our state should do the same for its people. A lot of out-of-state and or foreign people stand to profit from what's under the ground in West Virginia. And I would like to see the task force looking in that direction for solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next is Crystal Adkins.
Hi, I'm Crystal Atkins. I'm a special ed teacher in Marion County, West Virginia, also a member of AFT Marion County. PEIA has been a growing problem for many years. The problems with PEIA is now hurting the employees it was designed to help. As a teacher, I've personally experienced the effects of the rising problems with PEIA. It's unacceptable for any public employee to have to take a second job just to be able to cover their medical expenses. A solution is needed now. This past winter, public teachers and service personnel took on the fight for all public employees. This task force was formed to find a solution to PEIA. There is one easy solution: tax the oil and gas industry. We need to stop. We need to stop allowing big companies to come into West Virginia and take what is under this great state soil without having to pay a cost.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is up to this task force to go back to Charleston and demand that our elected officials do what's right by the state employees, and that is tax the oil and gas industry. Senator Carmichael, I have a quick question for you. Are you willing to go back to Charleston when session starts and ask your fellow colleagues to support a bill that would tax the oil and gas industry to fund PEIA?
Well, it's interesting because we've already done that. We did it, the House of Delegates didn't take it up, but the state Senate passed a tax on the oil and gas industry and tiered it on the severance rates. So, yes, obviously, I've already voted for it.
And how much was the tax you proposed?
It was a 2.5% increase, or might have been 2, which is, by the way, 50% increase.
Could you, or 5, would you support a higher increase on tax?
I hear you saying that we need to tax the oil and gas industry. Currently, they pay a 5% severance tax, which brings in, this current fiscal year, probably about $120 million.
And is that money going to fund PEIA?
It goes into the General Revenue Fund, which funds PEIA.
Okay.
There's not a dedicated stream then.
Well, and I've heard my colleague, I don't want to put words in my colleague's mouth again, but there's all this clamor for a dedicated revenue stream, and it should be the oil and gas industry. And really, if you want to tie your health care benefits to a very volatile commodity that goes up and down, I think that's a mistake. I think you're far better off to have a general revenue allocation that takes money from a distributed group of sources and funds PEIA from the general revenue fund. Am I wrong about that, Dale? Did you say that?
I've said that before, yeah.
All right.
But wouldn't it help us if we took, as one of the sources to fund PEIA, tax the oil and gas, just one source to help fund it?
We do that.
But all the money goes to PEIA.
Well, all the money goes into the general revenue fund, which gets distributed for, we spend about $1 billion on PEIA. We spend about $2 billion on public education, your salaries and so forth. So, I mean, you know, there's alternative uses for every dollar in the state budget, and there's people that want it, you know, in different mechanisms and manners. So, your suggestion is a good one. I think the rise in a severance tax, and we tier it to the price of the commodity, I think has merit. We've already voted for that. I think Senator Beach voted for it and others. So it's a good suggestion. We've already done it. And it didn't make it through the complete legislative process, but we'll take another run at that, yes.
And will you advocate for it to get passed in the House of Delegates?
I don't have a vote there, but yes.
But you can talk to your fellow...
Yes, yeah, I mean, whenever we pass a bill in the Senate, we're pretty anxious to get it passed in the House.
Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Heather DeLuca Nestor. I hope I got that.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for coming. First, I'm a teacher here at South Middle School. I teach 8th grade science. I'm also the president of Monongalia County Education Association, and tonight I'm going to speak to you on behalf of myself, pretty much. I've been coming to the hearings for a lot of years, and I finished my 17th year of teaching, and I have to tell you that I come from a long line of educators, one of which is retired at 32 years of service from Tucker County Schools, excuse me, and the other two have left the state. That was my dad and my stepmom. And the reason they left the state was because about 30 years ago, my stepmom got breast cancer. And she didn't get it once, she got it twice. And they had PEIA, they were teachers, and they chose to seek health care outside of West Virginia. So certain things were covered here, certain things were not covered here. And, you know, today she's alive because they went to Virginia where treatment was experimental. That was when bone marrow transplants weren't common, and she had a bone marrow transplant. And so they couldn't afford to stay in West Virginia and raise our family and teach school. And so they've gone to New Jersey to teach at the Educational Testing Service. They make tests, they don't actually teach anymore. However, lots of people sitting in this room do not have those options. And I know that you have a great task at hand, and you have to find funding sources, not one, funding sources, because I also know that every year you have to add to that money. And so I'm here to protect my mom, 32 years of teaching, these people sitting behind me, and people that have left. HBO Vice called me, and they said, hey, listen, we're doing a story on teachers that are leaving West Virginia to go to other states. Can you give me some names? It took me 24 hours to get them 5 names. I urge you to keep your people in West Virginia and to take care of the people that take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Bain.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Bain. I am the regional rep for WVEA, and I don't have a personal story to tell regarding this, but I think we need to talk about funding sources for PEIA. Now, I agree with Mr. Lee and Senator Carmichael that one source isn't going to be a fail-safe stopgap. I feel we need to find several sources, and that is why throughout Monongalia County, over 1,000 people in Monongalia County Schools signed this petition. And what this petition asks for is raising the natural gas severance tax to 7.5%. And the reason for that is, when you look at these natural gas sites, how many license plates from Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma? We are not bringing jobs into this community. We are not bringing jobs into this state, permanent jobs into this state. We cannot allow natural gas to go the way of coal and timber, and once the resources have been pillaged, pack your trucks up and go home. We cannot let it happen again. I also ask that the corporate net income tax be raised to 9% to also fund PEIA. For over a decade now, this tax has been lowered and has not helped the citizens of this great state, not one iota. And finally, I've heard bandied about in these hearings all across the state the potential of a food tax being levied. I ask you, please, please do not have a food tax on the plate for PEIA. We cannot allow the citizens of West Virginia be pitted against the public employees of this state. This is not a tax that needs to be done to hinder the poor and needy of this state. We have a gold mine here with Marcellus Shale, and we're letting it slip through our fingertips. Thank you.
Okay, number 6, Norma Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Norma Taylor, and after being a high school teacher and high school librarian for almost 30 years, I've remained active by representing retirees as the Secretary of the West Virginia Association of Retired School Employees, the Vice President and President of the Harrison County Association of Retired School Employees, and a 3-term Director of the West Virginia Education Association Retired. I have consistently spoken for the 34+ thousand retirees on issues that affect them. I never missed one of the PEIA hearings. I knew from 3rd grade on that I wanted to be a teacher, not because it paid well, but because I loved learning and passing that knowledge on to students and encouraging them to follow their dreams. While salaries have consistently been low in West Virginia, in the 1970s we were given insurance instead of pay raises. The coverage was good, and it ran into problems in the late 1980s. That helped to cause the 1990 teacher strike. And a promise was made to us when we went back to work to fully fund our insurance. However, as we know, that promise wasn't kept. Especially in the last few years, the failure of the legislature to fund PEIA caused a surplus to be used to make up for that shortfall of funds. This has led to increases in premiums, co-pays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses for retirees in order to make up the deficit. Retirees do not receive any pension increase to help offset the higher costs. Yes. That means they receive less pension income. For many of our older retirees, some of whom only receive $500 a month, this means choosing whether to purchase medicine or groceries. After a life of dedicated service, not one retiree should be put in that position. The legislature should not be allowed to avoid its duty to fund PEIA and provide medical care to its loyal, hardworking employees and retirees.
That's right. Yes.
In answer to their lament that We want to provide the funding, but there's no money available. VARS has shown legislators a funding source. Instead of just giving away the deep shale gas to outsiders, as your predecessors did coal and timber, increase the tax on the oil and gas that is leaving our state. And in answer to those who say the companies would leave the state, they will not leave. They have invested too much already. The brightest spot of all in PEIA for retirees is Humana. After listening to speakers from the active employees on Tuesday night, I realized how fortunate retirees are to have Humana. They administer our Medicare and PEIA supplement. Humana has a call center with employees always willing to get answers and explanation for questions. They have employees who provide seminars and explanations for any changes planned for the following year. And in the last 10 years, I've only had positive comments for Humana. Please continue that arrangement with Humana for the retirees. In closing, please remember, retirees live on fixed incomes. Most have never received any pension increases, and that means whenever there are increases in premiums, co-pays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expense, the retirees receive a pension decrease. This cannot continue. Retirees who willingly gave so many years of dedicated service deserve better.
Yes.
And I'm going to add one more thing. Even without increasing the severance tax on oil and gas, there's enough money to fund PEIA with all the tax cuts that have been given to companies over the last several years.
Thank you. Mary Ann Ferris.
Good evening. I'd like to begin by thanking you all very much for your willingness to serve on this task force and for taking this job so seriously and listening to us, because it's a matter of life and death for us. I'm Mary Ann Ferris, and I am the president-elect of West Virginia Association of Retired School Employees. I am a continuing member of the Board of Directors for West Virginia Education Association Retired. I am also the past president of Harrison County Association of Retired School Employees and its future vice president. Norma and I have just switched offices. As such, I feel that I represent adequately over 30,000 West Virginia retirees who are very, very much concerned with the status of our health care in the state, and I think rightly so. We are the group that were promised health care in lieu of raises, as others have already pointed out. We have received little or no increases in our pensions, but we have certainly felt a loss in our disposable income due to inflation and to increasing, ever-increasing health care costs. I have been retired 16 years, and my income has decreased by $300 per month due to my health insurance increases. Now, I can afford that, and I'm fortunate that I still substitute occasionally because I like to do it, and it does give me the extra spoiling my granddaughter's income that I need, as well as what I need to pay for my health care insurances. I also want to remind you that we have around 900 employees and retirees in the state of West Virginia that, due to legislative action in the past, are guaranteed a pension of $500 a month. That's their pension. Can you imagine what their Social Security is? About $300 maybe? We'll be liberal and say $400. Who can live on $900 a month and pay for these increased health care, plus the inflation? You go to the grocery store one week and a gallon of milk costs X amount of dollars. The next week it's X plus 10 cents. And I'm no math major, Dale. The PEIA proposal for a premium support voucher plan can only make matters worse for retirees. It will increase costs for them. It will decrease the number of possible providers, because many of them will not want to accept that. It can also mean that it will limit perhaps the doctor that they may choose, that they've been seeing for 10, 15, 20 years and they're satisfied with. If the insurance company that insures them does not consider him or her in their provider system, then they have to change doctors. It's possible that the hospital that they're most comfortable with could not be covered by their insurance company. So please, I encourage you to encourage the legislature and the governor and anybody else to continue the health care coverage with one provider plan that we currently have, and that is Humana. Why Humana, you ask? Because the retirees that I represent are extremely satisfied with the care and the coverage that Humana has provided. They have the call center, as Norma has already said. They also have special programs to address health issues that could cause increased medical costs, such as diabetes, the heart program, cholesterol training, obesity programs. Those are very valuable programs, and they offer that. As I understand it, this task force purpose is threefold. One was to examine the policy of PEIA coverage, which you have already done. The second one was to solicit input, which you are doing through these hearings. And the third is to come up with funding suggestions. And I have a few to give you. The first one I want to suggest is that you encourage our legislature to stop giving away our revenue sources through tax credits to out-of-state companies and corporates. You can't give income away without having a revenue source to replace it. And guessing hasn't proven to be correct. I also think that we need to implement and encourage our legislature, who doesn't want to increase any taxes, that it's necessary that we do so. The tax that was discussed last time, in the last legislative session, on sugary drinks. Yes, we have the highest obesity rate in the nation in West Virginia. Sugary drinks contribute to that. If we put a tax on it, maybe that will encourage our youth especially to go to an alternate source, like water. It's been discussed about increasing the cigarette and the beer and liquor. Absolutely. Why not? These are sin taxes. If I want to sin, I should be able to pay the price. And last of all, I agree with those who suggest the tax on the Marcellus Shale and Utica gas. In conclusion, please, please encourage our legislature and the PEIA board and all those others who are involved in this to take care of the West Virginia retirees and do it responsibly. Thank you very much.
You did a great job. All right, Jean Grant.
Jean Grant from Harrison County. I'm the legislative chair. I am the ex-Region 2 director, covering 11 counties, one of the largest districts. I am also on the WVEA Retiree Executive Committee. I retired in 1997 after 35 years of teaching. My retirement pay, as well as my Social Security, and my husband's retirement pay, since he was a civil servant, gave us an adequate living wage. However, with the death of my husband in 2011, I lost 1/3 of my income. Now, at the same time, my retirement pay had decreased. I didn't check to see how much until this past year, and I was amazed. I was over $300. It is now less than it was in 1997 when I retired. And every time your premium increases, my living amount decreases. It goes down. Only the legislature can rectify this outrageous problem. In 1990, I walked the picket line, and I was promising things by the legislature. Again, in 2018, I walked the picket line. I refer to myself as an old war horse. Well, this old war horse is revitalized. My voice and my anger will be heard at the next legislative session. I intend to be there. I intend to be heard, one way or another. Until then, I'm working in my home county prior to the election. PEIA board members, you need to convince the legislature. You need to do something. The actives and the retirees are committed. You saw that this year. PEIA premium and benefits, they are in the legislature's hands. And remember, we will be keeping a close eye on you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. That was very inspirational.
Yes.
Up next is Barbara Fletcher.
Good evening. First, I want to thank all of you on the task force for coming and for attending all these different hearings around the state. I'm sure you had other things you might have wanted to do this evening. But I also think we owe a really big thanks to our education employees. And the reason I say that is because I represent Montague County, and I have for 22 years. And in addition to education employees, we have a whole lot of public employees. And it's a little more difficult for them because they're employed by the state. And so I think we owe a big thanks, and I'd like to hear a hand for the education employees who also helped the public employees get a 5% raise. It was huge. All of you who were down there, I never heard anything like that on marble in my life. And a lot of these gentlemen and ladies have taken up things that I had wanted to say, but I just want to mention them, and I have a few more things. I think the number one thing that I am hearing from my constituents is about retirees. And that is both those who say work for WVU, or who work for corrections, or who work for schools that maybe make under $5,000 a year. Custodians, cafeteria workers, they are really having a rough time. And so I think that is really, really critical that we don't forget about them. Another thing I've been thinking about, as I'm sure everyone has been thinking about lately, is school security. In addition to investing in PEIA, we're also going to have to invest in school security. I do not want PEIA to be left behind again if we make investments in schools to make sure none of our students, none of our teachers, none of our school service employees get shot. We may have to do both. So when you are looking for these resources that we need to have, you need to be thinking about that, because the voters are going to expect that we're going to do something about that in the legislature. Last night I went to a visitation for a kindergarten teacher who died of cancer at North. And I found out she was the third teacher who died last week of cancer. And there is a long list of people at that particular school that have died of cancer. I think that a couple of our speakers have talked about cancer. And I think it's really important that we have people who work their entire lives. My daughter went to North. It's a wonderful school. I think it might be the most wonderful school she ever went to, but something's happening there. So we have, in addition to a security issue, we may have some increased costs that we don't understand and we don't know about. And what we're all talking about here today is people who worry that they're not going to have enough to cover their health care. That is what we're talking about, especially the seniors who say only made $5,000 a year and their pension and security is very, very small. The last thing I want to say, in addition to the fact that I am on PEA and it means something to me personally, is you get what you pay for. We need to make sure those resources are there, and that is your primary assignment, is to find the resources, and I think we do need to look at a variety of resources. And I think you're right, the oil and gas is a prime source, but it has historically been very, very volatile. So I think we need to look at the sugar drinks. I mean, there's a recent report from the Center for Budget Policy and Priorities that looks at that, and looks at all the legislation in other states and what kind of a bang you get for that buck. I think we need to look at marijuana. I think we need to look at the sin taxes, like some of our retired people have said. We need to look at that because we're not going to lift a rock and find the money for PEIA. That's just not going to happen. We've been looking under rocks for resources, and it's amazing to me that we found the money for the 5%. But we need more because this is critically important. I want to make sure that PEIA doesn't come in last, because we need to think about those state employees and those teachers. You know, all they have had with respect to their premiums is raises. It used to be free, and it's been raised, and it's not, not talking about a pay raise, but a raise in their cost. And we need to realize that that's unsustainable. So again, I want to thank you. I want to thank the people in our audience and thank those who couldn't come here today. And I appreciate your hard work on this.
Bob Beach.
Good evening to you. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that the task force chose Morgantown as one of its destinations. It's very important to us. You know, having been a previous member of the Blue Ribbon Commission, I understand the dedication and the time it takes to take on all this information, compile it, and work with it later on. That being said, I know you would rather be someplace else, as Delia Fleshauer mentioned, but these folks behind me right now, they too would like to be somewhere else. This is not the place they chose to be this evening. We have a problem before us. In 1990, my father and my sister were part of the equation going on in Charleston at that time when a promise was made for PEIA. Fast forward to today, my daughters are now part of that promise that we made to fix PEIA. And I've pleaded on the floor before to you, Mr. President, to do something then and not kick the can. And I don't believe we're kicking the can now. We're taking the time to analyze this fact gathering is what we're trying to accomplish here. And I appreciate that. But tonight I come to you not just as a legislator. I come wearing many hats. I come as a politician, I come as a father, a husband, an enrollee in PEIA. And also, more importantly, these are my constituents back here, but for me, these are my neighbors. There's teachers in this crowd that teach my children. If I looked hard enough, I'd probably find a cousin in the crowd. But again, they're my neighbors, and that means more to me than anything in this world. It's a great honor that they sent me to Charleston to be their voice, but it's also an honor to live next door to them. And next door to me is Putnam County, Raleigh County, right on down the list, folks. If you're in West Virginia, you're my neighbor, and I treat you that way. I know our ideologies on the Senate floor may be different, but you, Mr. President, know that we can shake hands. It's like a contact sport. You go off the field, you shake hands and have lunch together. That's just the way it is. And I've known that since day one. We came in together. So it's appreciative that you're here this evening to listen to these folks. And I do encourage each and every one of you to really listen. Because quite honestly, they think this is a dog and pony show. And I think it's up to you, sitting right here before me today, and later on we go back to Charleston, to diminish that thought. And show these folks that we really, truly are listening. Delegate Caputo had to leave early, but he wanted you to know that he's standing strong with these folks back here and is ready to do whatever we need to do to fix this problem. But you've heard a lot of folks here give you suggestions. Mr. President, I just want to remind you of one that was brought to the Senate floor while we were there, dealing with the health card that the Department of Defense is now using in the United States. That representative is here tonight. I don't know if he's scheduled to speak or not, but I hope that this commission, this task force, takes up that health card and presents that as a viable option to fix the problem we have with PEIA. Again, I appreciate you being here, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Tallman. I'm from Grant County. Been over there as a teacher for over 30 years. Forgot my notes, left them on my desk, but I do ask for your prayers. Fatal accident yesterday claimed the life of one of our 12-year-old students, young man. We had school today, students, staff, it was difficult, so I guess I'm making excuses, but anyway, just remember our county, our school, and the family in your prayers. We'd appreciate it. A couple things with PEI directly. I guess just to get some frustration. And I'll start with I finally found it, and Mr. Lee and Dr. Gupta made this comment first, and I think Dale might have tweeted it or whatever. He said, Dr. Gupta, Commissioner of the Bureau of Public Health, noted that West Virginians lead the nation in total numbers of prescription drugs they take, frequently for chronic diseases such as high blood pressure or diabetes, that can be treated with exercise and lifestyle changes. Now I know Dale and I know Dr. Gupta didn't mean it that way, but that's not true for type 1 diabetes. And I think it's sad that we put type 1 diabetes in with diabetes. My wife is a type 1 diabetic, been a type 1 diabetic for over 30 years. She couldn't prevent it. As of today, there's no cure. She can't exercise it off, even though exercise is good. Still good for her, and she does. She can't eat just the right foods and get off her insulin pump that she's on right now, even though eating right helps too, as her doctor says. So dealing with PEIA and diabetes has gotten very, very difficult. Number one, you try to call PEIA as a teacher. When can you talk to them? When can you talk to them? I mean, I teach Dale and you coach. When do you talk to PEIA about issues? And you get on there and you're on there. Her aunt was in the hospital and I had some time and I thought, okay, we got to deal with this issue over glucose monitors that was fighting with PEIA over. 50 minutes for PEIA. And the young girl was very helpful. She was trying her hardest. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I appreciate it. I told her I thanked her, but She sends me to Health Smart. Guess what? Another 50 minutes to an hour. Where else do I get sent? CVS. Another 50 minutes. So I was in the hospital, you know, and I had time while her aunt was in the hospital, and I wrote it down. I mean, I timed it and I wrote it down. That's got to change. That's got to change. It's going to be like banks. You can't get to them. So I would suggest, I would hope PEIA would extend their hours a little bit, at least once or twice a week or something. Go to 7 o'clock or something. Another program which is an excellent program, is called the Face-to-Face Diabetes Program. Excellent PEIA program. My wife will graduate there from November. Well, graduate's a nice word to put. She's getting kicked out of it, okay? That's more or less what it is. It saves us money, but why not continue? Why can't she continue in that? She's taking care of herself. She's she pricks her finger daily. I can go back there right now and squeeze her finger and I'll get blood out of it. Look, I'm serious. I'm not kidding. I'm not going to prove it to you though, but, you know, that's how many times she pricks her finger. You know, we watch and see what scores are in ball games and everything else. She wants to know what her A1C is. She gets very upset. She just went on an insulin pump, and thank God we have insurance and PEIA, and they paid, you know, for the most of it, you know, except for a few $1,000s. The glucose monitor she was using coincided what many Medtronics recommended, but PEIA won't cover. So we had to go through the appeal process. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You got to be kidding me. It was so frustrating. We made a trip to Charleston as well, just to try to talk with them. I made one mistake. I said, yes, it is a convenience too. And they said, that's it. We can't do it. It's not because it's, well, my gosh. For a type 1 diabetic to have anything convenient, I mean, come on, we can't let type 1 diabetics have anything convenient, you know. Not enough, they have enough going on in their life, pricking their finger and everything else. So anyway, give us choices with blood glucose monitors. Give us choices. We already make a choice with our doctor. We went to WVU Medicine up here for years when she first got diabetes. Excellent doctors, excellent nurses. But it is a factory. We go up there, you go in a cubicle, you wait, you wait, you wait. The doctor comes in, how you doing? Opens the chart, opens the folder, backs out the door. 2 minutes maybe, 2 minutes. And I'm trying to talk, listen, I'm sorry, I gotta go, I gotta, and God bless him, he had patients everywhere. So we went to an endocrinologist in Cumberland, Maryland. And excellent, excellent. 30 minutes minimum time. My wife runs out of questions to ask her. That is health care. That's health care. So about 15 years ago, she was having problems getting paid by PEIA. She was having problems. She got out. So we now pay the full price because we're not leaving her. We're not leaving her. And she's getting up for retirement. And we said, no way. You can't retire. We pay the full price. And we can't talk her in because I know PEIA, the payments to the medical providers are better. I don't have no one calling me too much, you know, anymore about, hey, pay this bill, PEIA's not paying it, what's the problem, blah, blah, blah. That's better. That's better. Give PEIA credit for that. But we can't convince her doctor to get back into it because of going through the appeal process. Because of, well, they're still going to tell me as a doctor and my wife as a patient what you're going to be able to use to treat your diabetes. It's still not, there's no choices. So I would hope that, you know, and Dr. Gupta said that, the wellness preventive medicine strategy has to be a very, very critical component of this whole discussion. Well, that's wellness and preventive medicine is what my wife tries to do. And PEIA, you know, it's difficult to do that. So give us choices. You know, we've talked about the gas severance tax. Why not? It's, you know, it's a no-brainer. Speaker Carmichael, I know you said it well. Let's keep it going. We need to pound it and pound it and pound it until we get it. End of story. End of story. Speaker Carmichael, if I could say, I'm going to give you $113 million next year. You'd probably like, yeah, bring it on. $1.50 tax on a pack of cigarettes. We need to do it. Done deal. And I don't know Spirit Color, but I think maybe the only state around us that's lower is Kentucky. If I'm going by the American Lung Association, that, you know, let's get it up there. And I think 113 million, you'd kind of like to see that in the coffers, wouldn't you? Okay. And finally, we need to get back to the level of PEIA funding before the pre-Manchin administration. Okay? I've been a member of WVA for over 30 years. They endorse all these candidates. I just can't believe the endorsement that one of our senators, state senators, U.S. senators is getting. I just cannot believe it. It's unbelievable. I can't get anybody to talk to me about it either. We need to change the culture of the WVA too. The WVA and the AFT, they don't understand. This is bigger than them. Our people's buying Gore-Tex because we're going out again in January, if not sooner. We're coming back. We're coming back for another pay raise. We're coming back. It's not 5% is not enough. It's not enough. I'm about ready to get out of it. I'm about ready to get out of it. We need young blood in, and we're not going to get them in until we can pay them like they pay in the other states. Okay? So, I know during the Manchin administration that PEIA funding began to dwindle. I know, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, he raised his pay 58%. There's a governor in Wisconsin that's trying to raise his pay 5%. They're going to crucify him over that. But yet here we are in West Virginia, 58%. Put TVs in all the governor's mansion in every room, whatever. I know that's just chump change, but that's perception, and that needs to stop. That needs to stop. Speaker Carmichael, God bless you. Thank you for the historic pay raise that you give us, because it was historic. We're coming back for more. Arnold Schwarzenegger said in the Terminator, "I'll be back." Thank you.
Let me just, since you brought out a tweet and attributed it to me, when you have 144 characters, it's tough to get really what is totally said. And what I said at that first meeting is that we couldn't expect our, when you have generics for other drugs that may work and the cost is lower, we can't expect diabetics who have no choice. We can't expect their costs to continue to rise and rise and rise. Anytime it goes from $50 to $550 is just wrong to people. And we're going to make sure that that's part of our goal, is to look at those things so that those costs are not borne by the people who can't help. I mean, there are some people who are born with diabetes, and while I believe in a healthy lifestyle, I also believe that for conditions that you can't help, you shouldn't be penalized and paid enormous costs for advertisements on TV.
Okay, up next, Bob Kostelak.
Thank you all for organizing these meetings. I know this is probably the last one, and a lot of the stuff that you've heard is probably repetitious. But I'm not only speaking to you, but I'm speaking to my constituents, and pardon my back. Fixing PEIA is not an easy task. We understand that. I don't even think you could fix it in a year. I think it's a road to recovery. And I think it's a two-headed serpent. And a lot of my colleagues have addressed one side very eloquently with the severance taxes and getting more money out of our resources. And I think that's, my grandfather was in the strip mining business, and when coal went up to $7 a ton, he couldn't believe it. In January, 7 of our honorable delegates, Ms. Fleshauer is one of them, and I call them honorable because they introduced House Bill 4294. And the purpose of this bill is to permit the state to designate a state agency to become a drug wholesaler to import pharmaceuticals from Canada to provide cheaper drugs to West Virginians. This bill didn't get past the Committee on Health and Human Resources to get to the judiciary. I think it needs to be researched and reintroduced after addressing what those concerns of the Health and Human Resources Committee were. I looked up some of the drug comparisons, and I picked two that my father's on and one that I'm on, and I'm not going to go down the list because it could be endless. But a 30-day supply of Xarelto in the United States, which is manufactured by Bayer, and it's sold to Canada and the United States by Bayer. In the United States, it's $425 for a 30-day supply. In Canada, it's $56. Vesicare is $365 in the United States for a 30-day supply. In Canada, it's $60. Welcol, which is what I take because I can't take a statin drug for my cholesterol, is $685 for a 180-day supply. In Canada, it's $202. Now, why are Americans charged so much? The West Virginia median income is in the lowest quartile in the nation. And I feel just as sorry for the ones that are in that top quartile, but these companies provide the same medication to Canadians that they do to our U.S. citizens. And to charge their own citizens these prices is outrageous. CVS is slowly becoming a conglomerate. They bought out pharmacy after pharmacy. Now they're after Walmart, and next they're going to be after Kroger. These pharmaceuticals that are supplied by Canada have quality checks through the Canadian International Pharmacy Association and the International Pharmacy Association of British Columbia and other provinces in Canada. The average American, this is your retirees, the average American over 65 takes 5 medications daily, and I think that's probably higher in West Virginia. Now, to buy these medications from Canada, it's a discretionary decision, and that would be on PEIA's part. No narcotics, no controlled substances can be crossing the border, but we don't need any more opioids in the United States or in West Virginia in particular. Now, since we lead the nation in obesity and diabetes per capita, PEIA does sponsor that face-to-face program. And I'm a new member of that program. I've been in it for just over a year. I think that this should be allowed to continue as long as goals are met. I'm barely in it over a year. I've lost 26 pounds and my A1C is down to 6. Insulin is expensive. My brother was on dialysis until he passed away at my home on December 27, 2015, the day after he took dialysis. And it costs around $89,000 per year. Participants should be able to allow to stay in this face-to-face program as long as the goals are met or sustained. I have a stepson who's 27 years old. He's special needs. We had to move him to a group home in Parkersburg. We had to sever his relationship with PEIA in our home because he is type 1 diabetes, much like your wife. And we couldn't afford the cost, so he's his own guardian now. He lives in assisted living in Parkersburg, and he has a medical card. We get to see him every other weekend. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't break up families. Another thing I want to address, the opposite head of that serpent, is tobacco. We lead the nation in tobacco use per capita. A $50 tobacco-free discount is not significant considering the illnesses caused by tobacco use. And I'm a former tobacco user. I quit smoking 30 years ago. And when I quit, I didn't touch a cigarette in those 30 years. Corporations are requiring testing for tobacco use, and those who test positive are required to enroll in a cessation program. Now, I'm not saying that we need to get rid of our employees and we need to kick our retirees out of the insurance program because they're tobacco users, but recruit participants in these cessation programs. Reach out to them because I know I wanted to quit, and I did. It is a fact that tobacco users cost businesses millions annually Due to the high health costs and high percentage of tobacco users in our state, we need to take a more aggressive approach to help our professional, service personnel, and new hires defeat their tobacco addiction. Voluntary enrollment is not as significant enough. Okay. To address the health cost issues of prescription medication, diabetics, and tobacco users is not only going to reduce the bottom line across the board, but will also be helping save lives. These are not solutions. I just think there's some possibilities to help funding PEIA. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Fleshire, for this House bill. I hope it gets reintroduced.
Thank you. All right, next, this is one of the first sheets I've read where they actually put their title on here. Mr. Frank Guda.
Well, I'm going to be fairly brief. Basically, I'm going to plagiarize from my brother Mike Caputa. Some of you know Mike Caputa, Delegate Mike Caputa. And what it comes down to, everybody on this panel knows we must fix and fund PEI. I'm actually old enough, believe it or not, to remember when the word take back was not really in our vocabulary. What little bit we did get, we actually got to keep years ago. Although our salaries were always, you know, in the bottom of the barrel, we did get to keep it. And as long as I've been a staff rep for AFT West Virginia, the word take back has been part of everyone's vocabulary. And that's what's got to stop. It's got to be funded and it's got to be fixed. And I'm going to plagiarize something my brother said to me a few years ago. He said, when the legislature makes something a priority, they find the money. And that's the bottom line, that we have to make our health care a priority. If we want to keep and attract people, I have a son who I'm very proud of who's getting his master's in autism and special education. Really floored me that he came back after a degree in exercise physiology. Mitch, I don't believe he's going to stay at these salaries, and especially with the health care being as poor as it is. So I'm asking that we find, and I totally agree with you, we need multiple funding sources. The bottom line, it needs fixed and funded, and it needs to be a priority. I'm also going to say one more thing that really bothers me very much, and the fact that there was actual legislation passed to get rid of our 2 union voices on the PE Finance Committee. We lost Josh Sword and Elaine Harris. Yep. Those are the people that actually represent these folks back here. And they were removed. With all the issues we have, the legislature, the majority party, actually took the time to pass legislation, because I actually asked Dale, because I heard, I wasn't sure how it went about, and Dale informed me that there was actually legislation. When you look at the multitude of problems, that we took that time to get rid of the people that actually represent the people that we're here supposed to try to find a solution for. And I would like to ask this task force to make a recommendation that our union voices are put back on the PEIA finance. And I would like to thank you all very much for everything you do. Also, our state president, Christine Campbell, sends her greetings, and we just hope we come up with a solution, because I think it's imperative. Thank you.
Okay, up next, Dr. Mike Vernon.
Good evening. I am Dr. Mike Vernon. I am a professor emeritus and former chair of the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology here at WVU. I and my colleague, Dr. Gary Horowitz, who's the director of our Center for Reproductive Medicine, we are here today to discuss the fact that PEIA has no coverage for infertility. It is not clear to us why we do not have health insurance for infertility. Especially since the objective of health insurance is to ensure that an individual has the ability to pay for unexpected medical expenses when their organs fail. For instance, PEI health insurance will pay for bypass surgery if we have a blocked coronary blood vessel, they'll pay to fix a broken arm. However, if a woman has a blocked fallopian tube or a non-functional ovary, PEIA will not pay to fix that problem. If a man has seminiferous tubules in his testes that do not produce sperm, PEIA will not pay to have that problem, even though these are dysfunctional organs, just like the coronary arteries. Currently, PEIA has coverage for cancer victims. I can't think of a more distressing complication than cancer, so this is kind of good. However, we now have treatments that can cause some types of cancers to go into remission. Unfortunately, most cancer treatments will destroy a woman's ovaries, and they will destroy a man's testes. But we now can successfully cryopreserve, that is, freeze eggs and sperm. So those individuals that have survived cancer can now have children. PEIA will not cover fertility preservation. Again, I personally do not understand why couples are denied reproductive health coverage, especially since infertility is a common problem. 20% of reproductive age couples are infertile. That's 1 in 5 individuals. That would mean as many as 20 to 35 people in this room have infertility, and they should have some type of coverage. I personally believe that everyone has the right to have a family. Everyone has the right to have children. It doesn't make sense that we do not have infertility coverage, especially since the state of West Virginia is fortunate to have 2 highly successful infertility clinics, one at WVU and the other one down at CAMC in Charleston. The IVF clinic here in West Virginia University, in particular, has a very good national and international reputation as a unique center of excellence. The Society for Assisted Reproductive Technology has developed a classification system for embryos that is used internationally. And that system is based upon the work that has been done here at WVU. Over half of the images used internationally are West Virginia embryos. So here we are in West Virginia with an excellent fertility clinic, but PEIA members cannot take advantage of this center of excellence. This just is not right. Finally, I am sure that you, the members of the task force, personally know how important your family is to you. Those of you that have children know that your kids mean everything to you, that they're priceless and you'd pay anything for them. You realize the joy that has come into your life from having children. All the members of PEI deserve the right and the chance to have children, and we should have coverage. So with this in mind, I am here today asking you to consider health coverage for infertility. I would now like to introduce to you Dr. Gary Horowitz, my colleague, who, as I said, is the director of the Center for Reproductive Medicine. He will continue this discussion and give you more explicit information about infertility coverage. And I want to thank you for coming here, because I know you are from diverse places, and this is a long trip, and it's a Friday night.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to disagree with my colleague a little bit. I think there are more people in this room with infertility problems, because most of the women are a little bit on the older side. I promise you I'm not going to yell at you, and we're going to change things here a little bit.
It's not a problem.
There are 10 states in the United States that mandate all infertility coverages, whether they be IVF to all of the small things. However, less than 30% of people who have infertility eventually go to the high-priced things. There are only 3 municipalities that have actually published things on them, because I think it's far more important that we look at retainment and enrollment. When Massachusetts passed this, they found that enrollment in their state coverage system initially went down, but it had caught up within 18 months, and they found out within the next 3 years, the overall cost per capita of person coverage actually decreased, because they were decreasing multiple deliveries or multiple births and things like that. The same thing for Canada and the same thing for France. So both at the state, national, and international levels, we've actually seen that it can decrease the overall costs. There are 2 bills in Congress, gentlemen, that are talking about this. In the Me Too time that is right now, read the papers, what is happening politically right now. With this next election, I think that it will behoove us to think about doing things proactively on our own terms than having this shoved down our throats. next year when this is passed in the Congress. There are ways of doing this in a graduated manner. Many of the insurance companies that cover insurance say that you have to jump through all these hoops before you get to the fancy things down the hall. And I would recommend the same thing. So the average cost for, again, per capita would be decreased. There are also 2 states, Connecticut and Rhode Island, that within the last month have mandated the coverage for the cancer patients and reconstruction and everything like that. So that fertility preservation is mandated in those states. In the 10 states that cover infertility, they spent $1 billion last year for breast reconstruction after cancer therapy. They spent a total of $12.7 million on fertility, covering all of the people. So we're not talking about a lot of money, but regardless of race, color, creed, sexual orientation, or political affiliation, nearly everyone wants to have a child, and I think we should allow that to happen. Thank you.
Up next, I don't know, okay, this is really tiny, my glasses. Tom, Rise or Rose? Rise?
Rise.
Aye.
You're going good. Better than PEIA. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Tom Rise. I'm 23 years with the state of West Virginia, 20 years with corrections, the last 3 with Division of Highways. Please, no one ask me when their road's going to be paved. That's not my area of expertise. I want to tell you, 2 years ago, my deductible was raised, my out-of-pocket was raised. Surprise to me. When I first started with the state, we'll go back 4 years, my deductible out-of-pocket was only $200. It was raised by the legislature or through PEIA, and that's up to $450. Last year, we got this little Healthy Tomorrows thing. I'm sure, I don't know if you're all familiar with it. You had to go to the doctor, and it actually, the PEIA actually pays for it. Well, I never saw the results that the doctor put on, so I don't know what they, Lo and behold, come the 1st of July, my deductible went up to $900 out of pocket, $950. I got charged a penalty because my one number, my dialosity, was greater than 90. It was 91. So therefore, $950 had to come out of my own pocket. I didn't know what to say. I called PEIA. They said, well, you didn't meet the criteria. I said, well, if I had known that before the doctor had sent it in, I would have tried to get my numbers lowered. The thing is, there was plenty of time for me to lower my blood pressure. I'm one of these people, when I go to the doctor's office, everything shoots up. So naturally, I'm sitting there waiting for 25 minutes for my doctor. Am I going to get seen yet? Am I going to get seen yet? So that was sent in. This needs to be changed. Either it needs to be done away with, or here's my suggestion. I joined this program also. It's the PEIA Weight Management Program. It's a good program. I actually lost 18 pounds on it in a year. If we're going to do this, if this is what PEIA wants to do, they want healthy employees. My suggestion is, instead of trying to penalize someone $500, PEIA needs to give them the option of letting them go to a gym or letting them go to some other type of facility to lower their blood pressure, weight, cholesterol, glucose. But charging $500 just to penalize me, PEIA could pay $500 and get a healthier employee. You know, I don't have the answers on how to fund PEIA. Working 23 years with the state, 2 different departments, corrections and highways. I can tell you one thing. If you look really hard, legislatures, into the books, you can probably find enough waste in state government to fund PEIA, because for 23 years, I've seen waste every day. Thank you.
All right, Annette Santilli.
Hi, I'm Annette Santilli. I'm the administrator of the Barber County Health Department. I'm coming to you today in 3 capacities. One, as an employer who offers PEIA to its staff, who is very frustrated with its administration. Secondly, as a provider of medical services and as a regular policyholder. Earlier this week, a friend of mine posted this on social media regarding her PEIA insurance. You pay out the rear to have medical coverage for your family and still pay out the rear for co-pays and deductibles. It's a shame that I have to ask myself twice if I really do need to go to the doctor or just have tests run for fear of making another bill. I think we all feel the same way. Several years ago, at another job, I had PEIA insurance and I loved it. In December 2013, when I got the position at the Barber County Health Department, I was excited because I was going to have PEIA back because it was a good insurance. How wrong I was. I've been very disappointed. I was on vacation earlier this week, and I came back early due in part to being able to come to this meeting, and also because I wanted to make sure that one of my new employees was all set to have PEIA insurance that should have begun June 1st. I started submitting all of her forms beginning the first part of May. I faxed the enrollment form to both the toll-free number and the regular number, as well as emailed it to a name that I have in the office. To all 3 of these, I asked for confirmation, and of course, I never received any. I found out that the form was received only because she forgot to put her social security number on it, and I didn't catch it. So again, I faxed it to the two fax lines, and I emailed it. Never got a response. Figured we were good to go. So then I get an email from a person about how the employee can't get health insurance unless she completes the basic life enrollment form. So I got her the form, and I emailed it promptly back to the person who sent me the email. So this person today called PEIA to find out about her enrollment cards. She didn't have them. So she called them, and they had no record of her. After all this, no record. So then I get on the phone, and I call, and somebody actually answered the phone, and I talked to someone. I think that's probably because of the meetings going on, because I can never get a return phone call, and I'm usually on hold for a whole long time. So finally, I got to talk to this woman, and I was on the phone for over 15 minutes. I gave her the case number that was in the subject line about this. They couldn't find any record of it. So finally, I gave her the social security number, and they were able to fumble around, and they found it. So fortunately, my employee is going to get her insurance. But that was 15 minutes today for something that should have been taken care of 2 weeks ago. Another time, I was completing the enrollment for a new employee, and I needed to find out her total because she would be paying for her portion through payroll deduction. I was told that they couldn't tell me, that I had to wait till the monthly billing came out. So there I was delayed again. I have one person's email who I usually will get an email back from if I have a question. More often than not, I never receive an email back from anyone. I have sent time and time again faxes asking for confirmations of receipt because I want the paper trail, but I never ever get anything back. Now, as a provider of medical services at the Barber County Health Department, we offer home health services, traditional public health services, as well as behavioral health services. We bill many insurances, Medicare and Medicaid, including many HMOs and MCOs. The payer with the longest turnaround time is without a doubt PEIA. And we need this money to be able to keep our payroll. There's got to be a faster way to process these claims. Now for me, I work with hardworking people at the Barber County Health Department. Several of us have PEIA insurance. Each employee who has PEIA pays 20%, and the health department pays 80%. We pay a higher rate than teachers for insurance, yet we make substantially less. My husband is self-employed, so the health insurance falls upon me. And we don't have, obviously, any dental or vision in our plan either. I feel the same way as about my friend who made the social media cost. Our deductibles are $25 for primary care physician, $40 for specialty physician, $50 for urgent care, and $100 for ER visits. My 14-year-old daughter complained on April 30th that she had severe stomach pain. And she's usually quite dramatic. And so you think, is this really something that we need to check on? So finally I decided she's got to go. So we couldn't get into her primary care physician that day, so we had no other option but to go to urgent care. And we went to WVU Urgent Care over there at Suncrest, which was wonderful. So immediately before we do anything, I have to pay the $50 copay. Yay! So then, because the UTI was ruled out, we were sent to the ER Ruby. After finally getting into an exam room, they did blood work, which sort of indicated appendicitis. But of course, you know, we had to be sure. So then we had to have an ultrasound, knowing full well that the tech may or may not be able to see the appendix because of, you know, girls have more female parts than boys down there. So they couldn't just do the CT scan because it was more expensive. So sure enough, the tech couldn't even find the appendix. So I'm paying for that now. Then we do have to go ahead and have the CT scan because her appendix was angry and it needed to be removed. So we're sitting in the ER waiting to get a room, and sure enough, someone comes by with her computer to register us. What she really came for was to collect the $100 deductible at the ER. I never would have guessed that was even a possibility. In other words, I don't think PEIA has any business overruling doctors and pharmacists. I have a daily prescription that I now have to get a 3-month refill for, and where it used to just be a month. So when you're budgeting your monthly payments, you have to know that one month you have a 3-month payout and the other one. My husband is diabetic, and he gets the Levemir pens for insulin. For him, the doctor's prescription is usually for 5 pens, but the pharmacy was only allowed to give him 2, according to PEIA, even though the doctor ordered 5. Medical costs keep going up, I know that. However, this insurance has got to keep costs down for everyone, not just teachers and public service personnel, but other personnel who has the insurance. I have an easy fix for it. For the state's budget in general, it's simple. The legislature needs to enact at least $1 increase on the pack of cigarettes as well to increase the tax substantially for other tobacco products as well. I would tell you that the stench in my waiting room at the health department sometimes is terrible due to the third-hand smoke. In addition to the smoker's health, second and third-hand smoke affects everyone. A tax of this magnitude will force people to give up the terrible habit, prevent young people from taking up the habit, as well as generate much-needed revenue for the state, which could fund PEIA. And I'm just not talking about the immediate savings and costs that would be, or money that would be generated. I'm talking about the smoke-related health and occupational costs West Virginia taxpayers every year nearly $10 billion. To further help PEIA policyholders, free cessation classes should be offered to those that smoke. Again, not just for smokers, but for other forms of tobacco. And this will reap rewards for everyone in the long run. For example, when my family was on vacation this week, someone was smoking where they shouldn't have been in the hotel parking garage. My daughter had an allergic reaction and immediately threw up in the parking lot. And there have been many times that secondhand smoke has triggered a migraine for me, which a lot of those times I've had to seek medical care myself, which causes increased health costs for me. Research has shown that a tobacco tax has to be put in place all at once to be effective. If If the tax is put into place gradually, people can adjust their budgets accordingly, and the tobacco companies also distribute coupons because they want people to use their products. The average tax on cigarettes nationally is $1.72. In West Virginia, the tax is only $1.20 per pack. In Maryland, it's $2, and in Pennsylvania, it's $2.60. Please recommend that the legislature increase the tobacco tax by at least $1 on cigarettes and on other forms of tobacco. When I first started working at the health department, we had 4 smokers. Through attrition, we are now down to 1 smoker. And of course, she has PEIA insurance. I'm sure that free cessation classes, if they were offered, she would participate because I know it is an addiction. In public health, we have a hard enough time recruiting quality workers because of low wages. If we can reduce the cost of our insurance, it will help attract and retain our workers. Making insurance and medical costs affordable for everyone will go a long way in making West Virginia a better place to live and work.
Okay, looks like Kendra Verche.
Good evening. I'm Kendra Verche. I teach at WVU. I have PEIA, and I'm running for Congress. Health insurance is often referred to as a perk or a benefit, but it is neither. It's compensation. It's part of the pay that teachers receive when they are offered a job, and they can choose to stay in West Virginia, or to go to Pennsylvania, or Maryland, or Ohio, or another state that has better compensation, including health insurance. So we need to keep that in mind when we're making decisions about how to fund PEIA or whether to fund PEIA. This is really an issue of our values. We have to think about what our values are and who we want to support and how we want to support them. So let's talk about our values. This is a freedom issue. If people are not compensated the way that we intended to compensate them back when they were hired, they will not be free to stay in West Virginia. It's a responsibility issue. We need to take responsibility for our teachers and for our communities that rely on our schools to be well funded. It's a commitment issue. We have committed to our teachers and service personnel a compensation package, and we need to uphold our end of the bargain as people of West Virginia. And this is a matter of priorities. You can't tell me that there's a problem that Americans, that West Virginians can't fix. This is a matter of political priority. And if we make it a priority, if we decide we will fund it, we will find a way to do that. And I really thank you for your attention and for your willingness to be here on a Friday night and listen to us and listen to solutions, because we need to think about and keep at heart our values and how we're going to keep West Virginians free to stay in West Virginia. Thank you.
Adam King.
All right, I'm Adam King, and I'm a special education teacher at Bridgeport High School. I'm also the second vice president for AFT Harrison County. And, you know, I just wanted to come here today to speak, and I've talked with Mitch. We're from the same hometown, so I've talked to him a lot throughout the last probably 6 months. And I wanted to crunch some numbers for you guys for what I would consider a middle-class family living in Bridgeport, and the hit we were going to take with having a family policy through PEIA. Take into account we used to get my wife is also a teacher, she's sitting over here. We used to get a benefit for both state employees, which was going to be taken away. So I do ask, I know nobody's mentioned that tonight, I do ask that you keep that for 2 teachers or somebody that has a spouse that's a state employee. When I first saw the new tiers back in, I think it was December, about mid-December, I couldn't really believe what I was seeing. I didn't think it was real, the tier that I fell under. my monthly premium under PEIA Plan A was going to go up $297 a month. And I have 2 children and a wife, you know, normal family, everybody's healthy, everything. So $297 a month is what our premium was going to go up. Our deductible was going to go from $1,500 to $3,000. Out-of-pocket maximum was going to go from $3,000 to $6,000. Luckily, both my children had been born. They were both emergency C-sections. So had that happened after those raises were going to go into place, we would have been paying medical bills at WVU for a long time. So those were some numbers that I wanted to let you guys in on. I've only found one person that actually their premium was going to go up higher than that. They were like $327 or something like that. We've been on a family plan now for, I think, 8 years. 8 years. That's our oldest child's 8, so that's when we went on it. And those numbers hit hard. I know $300 to a lot of people per month is not a lot, but to us it is. The average mortgage in Bridgeport's $240,000. Our house was significantly below that. We do not drive new cars. One of our cars is 8 years old, one of them 6 years old. Okay, I'm a fiscal conservative. Okay, the numbers just don't add up when you add our paychecks and the rising cost of what PEIA was going to go up. We don't have any extras, you know, we pay utilities. Child care is $700 a month. That's the going rate for 5 days a week, believe it or not. And we don't have it as bad as the folks that live in Morgantown or the Eastern Panhandle. That's even more expensive to live there. It hits different places a lot harder, you know, across the state as far as where $300 can go. One thing that I agree, the gentleman from the DOH that spoke earlier, I think incentives need to be given out through a wellness program. Not necessarily penalties, but those of us that do like to meet criteria and stay fit and do all those things, I think there should be some sort of incentives involved with that, and but not necessarily penalizing those who have pre-existing conditions, because that's not fair either. A couple more things I was going to say. Anything else? I'll think of them later. But anyways, thank you guys for coming. I just wanted to let you guys know our specific situation and how hard, oh, I know what it was. It was how we could fund PEIA, okay? $50 million a year. That's what I understand is going to be our deficit. So in 5 years, that's $250 million. We have to think outside the box as a state. The younger generation, we've been through the fossil fuel industry. We've even spoke, you know, the severance tax is only going to be good for so long, okay? You know, we've talked about, some people have talked about marijuana, different things. I know a lot of people in my generation, there is no recreational marijuana hub on the East Coast right now. Everything's out west. I know that's we're a long way from that in West Virginia, but we also need to think outside the box for revenue that we can bring into this state that will last forever. The gas isn't going to last forever. I live right in the middle of it. You can get off of the White Oaks exit. There's at least 7 or 8 buildings, multi-million-dollar buildings, EQT, Antero, they're all right there. You can drive by. They have fleets of cars, all right, that have out-of-state license plates. Those will go away. They went away about 5 years ago, and they came back. They'll go away again, and then what do? Okay, we can't put all of our eggs into one basket with taxing gas, and then when it goes away, we don't have any funding stream. But we have to think outside the box here. All right, thank you guys for letting me speak tonight.
I think you said John Taylor.
Yes, I did.
My name is John Taylor, and I am the Region 2 Director of the West Virginia Association of Retired School Employees. I'm also a new Executive Board member of WVEA Retirement. I've talked at several of these meetings, and you'll probably be glad to hear that this is my last. I can't go to the Charleston meeting because that's my wife's 70th birthday. So
You're not clapping because you want this.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I want to emphasize several things, and then I want to answer some questions that Helen Matheny asked me at the last meeting. Retirees will get no raises with which to fund the co-pays, deductibles, maximum out-of-pocket amounts, and premiums, all of which have increased in recent years. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here in a little bit. Some retirees have been retired for a long time, and inflation has eaten away at their pensions. I said before, I met a lady that was 102 years old, and her pension was based on the salary of years ago, probably 35 or more years ago. And that was a low salary and probably a low pension by now. In view of those ideas, I think retirees' costs should not only be frozen, but should be rolled back. There's been some discussion about how to pay for this. And I agree with a number of people who have said that we need a broad spectrum of tax increases. But I also agree with the gentleman, Mr. Caputo, that said that it's about priorities. The priority in West Virginia so far for the state employees and the state retirees has not been to keep up with medical inflation. Over the past several decades, the priority has been tax decreases. There have been, under both Republican and Democratic administrations, there have been hundreds of millions of tax reductions, of dollars in tax reductions. We can't do that now. We have got to fund this PEIA and keep up with it from now on. That has got to be our priority. That's the only fix for PEIA. Now, let me talk about the retirees because that's who I represent. Most of the retirees, and let me say this, once you're on Medicare, things change for you. About 80% of my costs are met by Medicare, not by West Virginia. And so things have reduced in what I pay as far as a copay or as far as a premium is concerned. When I first retired, I was only 64 and turned 65 very quickly thereafter. And when that happened, my premium reduced from well over $400 down to $200 and some until my wife also became 65. And we both went on Medicare. At that point in about 2013, we were paying $73 for our premium. Since that time, in only 5 years, our premium, I called down to the retirement board to get the exact number. My premium is now $100. Now that's a $27 increase. Now you say, $27, that's not that much. But stop and think. In 5 years, that's 37% increase. Not only that, the co-pays, deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums have also just about doubled in that period of time. My copay is not a $10 copay like it used to be, it's $20. And if I go to a specialist, it's not $20 like it used to be, it's $40. These increases eat up people who do not have a cost of living adjustment in their pay. Now, one of the things that Helen Matheny asked me to research was the average pension for some of these people, and I've told you, or the average premium rather for some of these people, and I've told you my premium in order to straighten that out, but you know, it's not too easy to say what the premium is for any given person because retirees vary greatly. Some of them worked for the state 10 years, some of them worked for the state for 35 or 40 years. So their premiums are subsidized at a different rate for depending on the individual. And that's why I gave you my numbers rather than anything else. But a 37% increase in only 5 years, that's pretty significant. If that keeps up, if I live to 102, I won't have any pension left. So that can't keep up, and if we don't get a cost of living adjustment in our pay, at least don't give us a cost of living deduction in our pensions, or in our premiums, and our co-pays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket maximums. Those out-of-pocket maximums, again, they have also almost doubled. For retirees, it's something like $1,350 now. It used to be $750. Those dollar increases all come out of our pockets of retirees who do not get cost of living adjustments, didn't get that 5% raise, Mitch. We didn't get it because we're retired. We're already on what we get. And so that doesn't change. Something needs to be done to help out the retirees particularly. And I would venture to guess, how many of you people out here are retirees? Raise your hands. See, they're pretty well represented here, okay? And the reason why is that they're concerned about what's happened with the retiree benefits probably as much or more than the actives are. So retirees need your help. And I appreciate your listening, and thank you very much.
And I will say, and several of them raised their hand here, I will say of all the ones I've been, and I've been to many, many of these, retirees have been very well represented. I will say that. They've turned out great. Up next is Cassandra Sisler.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Sisler. I'm a 4th grade teacher at West Preston School and also the president of the Preston County Education Association. I hear people here tonight talking about two things. One is cost and the other is coverage. I wanted to talk a little bit about coverage, and in doing so I want to share a couple stories with you, and I have several, but I pared them down. The first story I'll share with you is mine. 2 years ago, I was having some medical problems. Actually, I didn't realize they were problems, and I went to the doctor, and I thought I was pregnant, which is a scare at my age, but not impossible. So I thought I had good news, and the doctor walked in and took my blood pressure, well, the assistant, and said, "You need to sit right here, promise me you're not going to get up." And I had no idea what was going on. And my blood pressure was through the roof. Now, I have a history of low blood pressure, so this was really, really shocking to me. She went in and got the doctor, and they retook it, and they were, again, surprised that my blood pressure was very high. So they took me back in a room and did some further exams, and the doctor comes in with tears in her eyes and tells me that she thinks I have hepatic cancer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it has a 5% survival rate. She wanted me to be seen at UPMC because they could see me, they had the shortest wait time, and it is urgent that you're seen quickly. UPMC is not just out of network, they will not accept PEIA. So she referred me to WVU, which was a 3-month wait, which, you know, thinking you have liver cancer is excruciating. It was very stressful. But she had some other tests ran in the meantime, and they had determined that I did not have liver cancer, that I had cryptogenic cirrhosis, which you hear cirrhosis and you think, you know, I've heard a lot of blame be put on people who are ill. And cirrhosis is one of those things that I thought that people get if they drink a lot. Well, I'm a non-drinker, non-smoker. I don't take Tylenol. I haven't for years. They've tested me for drugs. I do not have tattoos. They've tested me for every STD possible, and they can't figure out why I have cirrhosis. The cirrhosis caused the high blood pressure. The cirrhosis also caused diabetes because my pancreas is not getting the blood to it that it needs to function properly. So all type 2 diabetes is not preventable. I just wanted to put that out there. So I was seen at Ruby for about a year and a half. I would have appointments with a doctor who spent less than 5 minutes with me. And at the last appointment, he got my age wrong, was unaware of the test I'd already taken, and told me that he wasn't there to treat my diabetes, he was there to treat my liver. And I'm like, but I'm a whole person, and you're suggesting something that's going to hurt the other condition. So after all that frustration, I decided, well, my doctor recommended I go to Cleveland Clinic, which is right here on my health insurance card. So you would think that that would be a network. It's not. However, I was very pleased with the coverage. My doctor there spent an hour and a half with me. She looked at me and she said, I bet your doctors have told you that you need to lose weight. I kind of laughed because, yeah. She said, they haven't told you how to, have they? Well, not really. One of the things I've heard in these hearings is about metabolic syndrome and the cost that puts on PEI, people who have metabolic syndrome. Well, there are 5 components to metabolic syndrome, and I have 4 of those. And until you treat those 5, it's nearly impossible for you to lose weight. One of the 5 components is sleep apnea. PEI does not cover the sleep apnea machine. High blood pressure, well, that was easy to treat even though I'd never had a history of it. Diabetes, which I was able to bring down without medication, my blood sugar levels to where they should be. But the ultimate thing in the long run that she suggested was bariatric surgery, which is also not covered by PEIA. I've read case studies, and she presented me with case studies that showed that with these surgeries, almost always within 6 months, it reverses diabetes, type 2. So that would be, even though the initial surgery has a cost, over time, especially with somebody my age, you're talking about saving money because of my health improving from that. But it's not covered. The second story I would like to share with you tonight, and I've asked my daughter's permission, is my daughter's story. My daughter is very bright. From an early age, we realized this. But she had some social skills issues. And at the age of 8, she was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Her social skills issues were definitely debilitating. And so they recommended that we see a therapist. The therapist was to work on social skills and theory of mind, which allows her to understand why other people are thinking what they're thinking, and their reactions. As most therapists do, they started out seeing her once a week and then gradually went to every other week. PEIA covers 20 sessions per year. So you've run out of sessions in less than a year. So I was told, well, the therapist can call and request more sessions, and our therapist did. And PEIA told her that if 20 sessions a year isn't solving the problem, maybe this child needs to be institutionalized. That could be why my blood pressure was high. Because I can't tell you how angry I was that they would recommend that I institutionalize my 8-year-old. High-functioning Asperger's syndrome. The third story I want to share is a story from a friend, and I promised her I would not disclose her name. This friend, she's a colleague, and I've known for years that she had problems with fertility. She had several miscarriages, a stillborn child, and finally they adopted, and then she got pregnant. Well, the doctors had learned that the problem with her carrying a baby full term is she needed progesterone shots. Well, PEIA told her that it covers her, not the unborn child. That's not a person, and they refused to cover her progesterone shots. So after several miscarriages, a stillborn child, going through the adoption process, which isn't cheap, and then finding out you're pregnant, they had to pay for the shots twice a month. It was every 2 weeks, $80. Those are just a few of the stories I chose to share with you today about coverage or lack of coverage. I do have some suggestions for cost. I think one of the problems with PEIA is if you look at the average age of participants, you realize that when you have a workforce that's older, you're having a workforce that has more health problems. One of the reasons why we have this workforce is because our pay is not competitive. We are not attracting and maintaining younger state employees, and that's not just teachers, but as a teacher, I'll tell you that when I graduated from Fairmont State, and I was a non-traditional student, so that was about 15 years ago, other states come in and they recruit those teachers. They offer them sign-on bonuses. They offer them $10,000 more a year. Where I live in Preston County, I'm not far from Pennsylvania or Maryland. I could go either way and make more money. I choose to stay in the county that I live in, the county I'm raising my children in, but I have to be able to afford to put braces on my children's teeth. I have to be able to afford to put them through college. So it's not even just a sense of loyalty, it's a sense of what I need to do that's best for my family, and we're not attracting and maintaining younger employees. However, I will promise you this. I have been out probably 2 to 3 days a week on average at least, knocking on doors to make sure that we get people in Charleston who are going to vote to fund PEIA. I'll go to all 8 counties in my senatorial district if necessary, knocking on doors. I've already been in 3. So I promise you we're going to get people down there who will vote to fund this. And we just need to make sure the coverage is there, that we're looking for a long-term fix to this. And thank you for your time tonight for listening to us.
For your remarks there. I have found out in doing several of these that if a story gets me upset or makes me mad, if I hold my comments in, I can't concentrate. And I found myself more than once in these meetings, not because I have to, because it's the right thing to do, and apologizing. Ms. Sisler, I apologize to you. Not that I have any control over anybody, or any board, or any group, but as a West Virginian, as a human, no parent should be told that they should institutionalize their child. No child in this state should go without the medical care that they deserve. No child. I do not care if that child is covered with this, covered with that, or not covered. No child should have to beg for insulin. No child, no parent should have to go through and jump through hoops. And as the gentleman was talking about his wife's pump that she's on, we've had children in this state that the parents has had to fight to get an insulin pump or a monitor approved. No child should have to do that. And I apologize that you was told that and you have to go through that. Now I can concentrate. Andrew Zickerus.
Good evening. Thanks for having this meeting. First of all, I am a 8-year employee for the state of West Virginia. Went to college here, grew up here from Webster County originally, now live in Fairmont. Have 2 sons and 2 beautiful daughters. The girls were a bit of a surprise. We were trying for one more boy and ended up with twin girls. PEIA didn't really, wasn't that much of a big help in 2015 because when you're a high-risk pregnancy, you have to go to the doctor once a month to start out with, and then after that it jumps up to where we were going almost every 3 days. We very quickly met our out-of-pocket, the out-of-pocket cash that we had to pay for that, which I think was about $6,000 at the time. That was what we had to pay out of pocket in order, before these girls were even born. That is more than 5% of what my pay is. My wife is a teacher in Marion County, and I have wanted for quite some time to get in front of a politician and give them some of my ideas that I have as far as what we can do to fix PEIA. And let me start off by saying, first of all, I think it is wonderful that we do have a program in the state of West Virginia. And I can guarantee you right now that in 2008, when I started working for the state in corrections, I now work for the Office of Technology, our insurance was actually fairly decent. I'm not going to lie, 2008 it was nice. I think we paid about $1,200 for each one of our sons. They were born within 3 years. We got PEIA for all that. When the girls came, like I said, we paid $6,000 because of everything else that came out of our pockets. Now, we had a little bit of money saved up. We had a couple of insurances that we had for policies like with Aflac and other stuff like that that really helped us get through all that. My wife had to take time off when she had these kids. Well, there's no pay when a wife takes off time to stay at home with those kids. When the twins were born, I took off time because if there's not anything else that you get as a state employee, you do get a lot of annual and sick leave. So I was able to take off 2 weeks, which was a week of annual leave and a week of sick leave. That was all that I was allowed to take off without going off of payroll in order to stay at home with my wife, who just had 2 baby girls and needed a lot of help from another person. Now, it's changed now. We now have 2 weeks, or 4 weeks of family sick leave that we can use now. But that needs to be changed. I don't know how many times I've been listening to Hoppy Kercheval, and senators and Congress and the House Delegate Republicans are always saying, we got to get rid of the sick leave. We're giving them too much unfunded liability. There's too much unfunded liability. Paternity leave and maternity leave would be a fantastic way for you allowed to get rid of that unfunded liability. And it would also make it fair for some of the families that have to stay at home with their children. Now, back to my points. The smartest thing that was ever done in the state of West Virginia was to not allow state employees to run for public office, because we sure could fix a lot of the things that you guys can't. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're in it. I mean, that's a lot of it. A lot of it is that if it doesn't happen in Charleston, it doesn't exist. Well, there's more to West Virginia than just Charleston. My grandmother is on PEIA. She retired in 1999. She had 12 years of experience. She had 12 years working for the Board of Education, and her insurance has gone up steadily ever since then. It has not stopped. The only saving grace that they have was that my grandfather, my step-grandfather that she married, was a union mason who has a pretty decent pension, but it's starting to get eroded now too. A couple of things that I've always wanted to know. You've mentioned natural gas being, what if the price goes up and down? Well, right now, natural gas has been at historic lows. So where we put the tax on now is the tax on the bottom. It's only going to go up. And once everything gets done where there's no more coal being burned in these power plants, and the only option that we have for electricity and to heat our homes is from natural gas, you better daggone believe that the price is going to be going up more and more, because the demand's going to be going up more and more. One of the options that I've always liked is opening up PEI to everybody, being able to mix funds. Now, I don't know the federal rules, I don't know what the state rules are, but if there was a way to mix some of our Medicaid money, some of our Medicare money, the PEIA money that we're spending, as well as all the other little pots of private funding sources that we have inside of the state to pay for different things that are pet projects of politicians, I'm sure we could find some way to make sure that at least everybody in West Virginia could have health care if they needed it. Another option is WVU Medical and CAMC are in the top 5 of the 2 highest employers in West Virginia. I don't understand why we can't contract with them to say, if you've got PEIA, you come right in here to one of our extensions, and instead of it costing you $50 out of your pocket before you can be seen, we're going to take care of you. Because the vast majority of times we've gone to the hospital, it has been to get an antibiotic for a kid with an earache. It has been to take care of the little stuff. Now, I've got some big expenses that we've had. My 10-year-old had an appendectomy and his tonsils out, and that was more expensive than having the twins. But I'm not going to get into that. Marijuana expansion for recreational use or medical use. I know we've got the medical stuff. You guys can't get your stuff together. Well, the House can't get their stuff together, let me put it that way, to get down there to get a vote on it. So that needs to be taken care of so that we can at least get something off of that. And that's a new tax. That's an optional tax. That's stuff that we get that doesn't cost anybody else anything else. I was kind of confident in 2015 that when you guys took over the House and the Senate, that you were going to do a better job whenever I heard that you were going to lower the sales tax and expand it to everyone. You want to talk about something? West Virginia has almost, hold on, I got to bring up the statistics here. West Virginia has a gross domestic product of, can you tell me off the top of your head? No. We had the highest gross domestic product in 2017 of almost any state. And it was $57 billion. We have $57 billion of goods and services that are provided for and purchased in this state. Over the last 7 years, we have had a decrease in the amount of tax revenues, even though we have had an increase in gross domestic product, which means people are buying stuff, but we're not getting our tax money for it. And expanding to cover services is a way to double the tax revenues right off the bat, charge the accountants, charge the laborers that are out there building houses, charge sales tax and all that. Doesn't cost regular people an extra penny. The only thing that it does is increase the tax revenues that we have, and right there is a steady stream of income for PEIA funding. Natural gas, like everybody else has said, marijuana, we need to change. If a company goes and buys a car, they get to write it off and they don't have to pay taxes on that. That's one of the things that we do to make sure businesses come here, because everybody does that. I don't get that opportunity as an individual. If I purchase a car to go to work, I got to pay taxes on it, and I don't get a deduction on my income. So, while there needs to be a stabilization of the business taxes as to the income taxes of what individuals and businesses pay, we have, you've heard it before, Texas trucks running up and down the roads, destroying our roads, and we're paying for it. And how do we pay for that? Well, part of it's DMV fees. And if I'm not mistaken, if you are in the state of West Virginia for a year, you're supposed to have a West Virginia license. Now, why in the world are all these oil and gas fields that have been here for years and years and years, all of them have Texas? This ain't Texas. This is West Virginia. Texas ain't paying to fix our roads. West Virginia is. And all those people that are in there that have those jobs, they're not West Virginians, and all we're getting is the sales tax on whatever they buy, as far as that goes. We don't get another penny from all those people that are from Texas and sending their money back to Texas. And we're not getting any property taxes off of those trucks because they're registered in Texas. That needs to be fixed. That needs to be fixed. the one other thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm sorry, I gotta go through this one more time. That's it, okay. The one thing that I wanted to bring up was that PEIA does not pay for sterilization of men. I know that that's Obamacare, Affordable Care Act deal that women are covered 100%, men are only covered 15%, 80-20 out of pocket. I don't think that's a very fair thing to do. And then the last one is, actually the last one's a hot button issue and I'm not going to get into it. But as far as that goes, there are a lot of things that are put on the table that could be done to, A, if you do expand the sales tax and you were to lower it a little bit, you wouldn't have everybody out in the street screaming, well, we have to pay taxes on a whole bunch of stuff so those teachers and those public employees can get their free insurance. If you can figure out a way to, A, couple this with a decrease in the sales tax and an expansion of said sales tax, even if it's only by 1%, that's more money in my pocket. That's more money in most people's pockets. And the vast majority of services that are tax-free are services that businesses pay for. They don't buy lumber when they go to Lowe's. They don't get sales tax when they go to Lowe's and they buy lumber. I do. All that lumber, everything else that goes out of there, all that, they get it without a sales tax dime paid into the system. And then, I am sorry, there's one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and it has to do with the license plates too, is that we have done an excellent job in the state of West Virginia of giving away our natural resources. As far as I know, we only have one company that is a coal company in West Virginia that is owned by a West Virginian, and he's our governor. All the other ones are owned by people from Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. Now, we don't have a wealth building institution inside of that by itself because those people don't live here. All of the money that we have goes out. All we get is the severance tax on it. That's all we get. Now, we might get some of the income tax because some of those people live in West Virginia, but it would make so much more sense if instead of having our, it's excise tax, right? I am using that right. Severance tax, severance tax. If we were to give an exemption to companies for that excise tax, if they were to come here and they were to, A, put in more long, permanent jobs for construction, for factory work, for refinement of said materials. You want to go out of state, you want to send your natural resources up the river, you're going to pay a severance tax on it, that's fine. But you want to come here, you want to take our natural resources, you want to turn them into good, usable resources, you're going to get income tax off of that, and you don't need that severance tax as badly as you did before, because you've got people that are here that aren't going to Ohio to take in jobs, that aren't going to Kentucky to build furniture, or North Carolina, or all these other places, because they're staying here in West Virginia and are doing it here. You're going to increase the amount of people that are here, you're going to increase the tax revenues that you have, and the fact of the matter is, the problem with West Virginia at this point is not the fact that we need to raise taxes, it is the fact that we need to get more people in our door and more people to stay here, and we're not going to do that with just tax cuts alone. We got to have jobs. And in order to have those jobs, every time I listen to Hobby Kirchhoff on the radio, they always say we want a clean workforce, we got to have a place to put the factory, and we got to have a stellar education for those employees. There are two of those things that you can specifically do. They never mention lower taxes. They never mention lower taxes. They say a clean workforce and an educated workforce. Those two things are well within your ability to do, and those should be the two priorities, starting first of all with that education and these fantastic teachers that you have in here, and paying them not like they're indentured servants and they're trying to get rid of their student loans, but you need to pay them like they are professionals, like they are lawyers, like they are doctors, like they are everyone else who is a professional. And you need to do that for state employees too, by the way. And then you need to make sure that they're clean. You need to make sure that they're healthy. You need to make sure West Virginians have the most effective going to work people that you will ever meet in your entire life. That's the reason Toyota's here. That's the reason Toyota stayed. It's the reason that every other place that's here from another place has stayed, is because we are a fantastic workforce. And there's no way, when you've got 20% of your population on PEIA, and they're having to pay out of their pocket and they're not getting the coverages that they need, that you can have them raising kids that are going to be a healthy workforce. It's just not possible. You want to get more people here? We need more jobs. We don't need more tax cuts. We need to force the businesses that are buying our goods and services to put their finishing products in here. We need to encourage businesses to raise wages through tax decreases that way, instead of just oh, here's a tax credit. Oh, you're going to pay them $20 an hour. We'll give you a better tax credit if you're going to pay them that much. Those are the things you need to be looking at. And those things, when they get taken care of, we're not going to have to pay more taxes, because we're going to have so much money in the coffers that we're going to be able to get a tax cut as the workers, instead of just the businesses in this state. So that's my .02. I hope y'all have a very great day. And I have to go relieve my children's grandparents from the 4 grandkids that they're watching right now. You have an excellent night. Thank you for your time.
Okay, up next. No. Yes. Sarah Ellen Beamer.
Good evening. Excuse me if I'm a little slow. My county's in school with kids through next week, and then teachers still have a week and a half after that. That's okay. It was worth it. I'm Sarah Ellen Beamer, and I teach elementary music in Marion County. I live here in Morgantown. First of all, as the WVU professor mentioned about infertility, and Dr. Horowitz, who is my doctor, I am infertile along with my husband. So that is one of the topics I will be speaking about tonight, about the coverage for infertility treatments. Excuse me. I also have a coworker in my building. We talk to each other about how difficult it is, just mentally but also financially, that PEIA does not cover anything for infertility, and it's very expensive. My first appointment, including the blood work, which is $1,000 just alone, that will be coming out of my pocket. The $56.87. Where the 87 cents came from, I don't know. But point being that that was just for the blood work. That didn't count the $300 doctor fee, the $800 ultrasound, and all the other fees that are to come. My $800 appointment that will be on Monday, plus all the other treatments that will come. Hopefully, the doctor, it won't take us long to get it through. But I do know couples that aren't fortunate enough to be able to afford that. My husband has a great job. Unfortunately, we can't pay for that out of pocket. But I teach children of parents who don't care about their children. They don't feed them. They don't read them a story at night. They don't have means to take care of them. And in their own sense, they're not investing in West Virginia because the teachers are taking care of them at school. And maybe the grandparents are raising them and not the parents themselves. But I am a hardworking woman. I'm a little overweight, but otherwise I'm healthy. My husband's healthy. There's no reason why we can't have kids. But for some reason, it's not working. We can't have kids. We want to stay in West Virginia. I've been born and raised in West Virginia. I'm 22 years old, and you will drive me out of this state. I will not leave unless you drive me out by my ears. Because I love it here. This is the place I want to be, to live, and I want my children to live. And I want to have children to be future leaders in West Virginia. And I'm investing in the state, I feel, by continuing to have more West Virginians. And back to teaching the students and investing in the future, maybe their families aren't, but the teachers are. And I only teach music, but I'm still investing, and so are all of the other teachers. So PEIA, not just to cover me for my own personal, but investing in the teachers here that care about these students, that are investing in the students that are the future of West Virginia, the ones that are already here, the ones that are in my classroom, the ones that love this state, and that we're trying to invest in to show them that they're worth something, that someone does care about them, and they have the potential. But there are teachers that leave because they can't afford to be here. When I first started teaching, I was making more my first year than I am now because of PEIA. I'm making less because of how much I have to pay out of pocket in my premium. This is my 3rd year teaching. I don't want to go teach in another state. I definitely can't see myself doing anything else than teaching. But when hopefully, God willing, we have kids, if we can't afford that, then I'm either going to have to go to Virginia, where my husband's from, and be able to make more money and afford to have those kids, or I'm going to have to find a different job and not invest in those children as much as I am. And I have people that I graduated with that have left the state because they can't afford to stay here, or they're making $10,000 more in Florida. And it's just very disheartening to me because I love West Virginia and I love these kids that I work with. And I'm willing to work way more than I'm paid for to invest in them if I'm able to take care of myself and my own family. So think about that when you're thinking about funding PEIA, because it's not just an investment in the people that have it, not just teachers, all the same employees. I'm just a little biased because I'm a teacher. But we are investing in the future by being those qualified, certified teachers who care about these kids who are eventually going to be the adults and the leaders in this state. So please just think about that. I don't know what the answer is to funding it. You guys are much more smarter than that. I can teach you how to sing a song, play an instrument, but you all know all the other fancy stuff. But just consider that it's not just an investment in the ones who were yelling at the Capitol, but it's an investment of the people that are going to be in your seats one day. Thank you.
And what I'll do, I'll go ahead from now on, I'll start telling who's on deck, so you can get ready. And we've got about 9 speakers left still here, so we want everybody to stick around so you can hear. Andy Cochran is next, and then followed by Andy will be Sarah Anderson.
Hi, my name's Dr. Andy Coburn. I am a retiree from WVU. My wife is still a faculty member, so I'm on PEIA. But I want to talk about something slightly different. I want to tell a story about what happened to my brother a couple of months ago. He was sharpening an axe, and he dropped the axe while he was sharpening it. And stupidly, he tried to catch it, and unluckily, he succeeded. So he cut his fingers, severed some of the tendons. And so my sister-in-law got him bundled in the car and drove him to the emergency room. And yeah, what are they going to do? They looked at him in the emergency room and said, you need some surgery. Like, sure. And luckily the head of the surgery was on duty in the ER. And so he said, we'll put your tendons together, and I think you're going to need to be in here overnight, even though this, And so they did that. And next morning, my sister-in-law went to get him, and his hand was, pictures of the hand, all bandaged up. And but they did successfully reconnect those tendons, and he's had to go through physical therapy, of course, since then to try and get movement back into the fingers and get them stretched again. When they were in the emergency room, my sister-in-law said, we have insurance. Here's our insurance card. The person that admitted them said, well, it looks like he really needs to be in the hospital. We don't need your insurance to take it back. My brother said a couple weeks ago that this whole episode has cost him now so far $10. He had to pay for some of, they put the bandages on his hand, they got all bloody in the emergency room. He had to pay for the bandages for some reason or other. Everything else was covered. So, as you can figure out, my brother does not live in West Virginia. He and his wife moved to Portugal in February of last year. So this is what you get when you live in a country that cares about its people, that cares about healthcare. Portugal is not a rich country. I've been there and visited them. It's probably the poorest country in Western Europe. It's not in better shape than West Virginia. Most of the young people are living in Germany or somewhere where they can find jobs. The unemployment rate is high. But they've just decided that healthcare is something that we're going to provide for our people because it's the right thing to do. And they figured out if you're going to do that, you can pay for it. We keep hearing that healthcare is too expensive in the U.S. We can't afford insurance. We can't afford health subsidized insurance. We can't afford healthcare. We can't. We just have to make the decision to do it. So this is the first step, is to deal with PEIA and say, this is something we're going to do. This is important, and we're going to do it. And if we think about it, we can do it. We've heard all sorts of suggestions and all sorts of suggestions in the legislature about how to fund it. Personally, I've listened to Senator Jetta, and I agree with him. You know, marijuana is an obvious thing. I've heard Jim Justice say, Jim is the biggest farmer in the eastern half of the United States. And he said, oh yeah, you know, marijuana is the biggest cash crop in West Virginia. It's not even close. I've talked to our ag commissioner, he says the same thing. You know, it's like, okay, you know, you guys are like, we've got this $1 billion crop here, and everybody acknowledges it's here, it's $1 billion crop, and we're not taxing it. You know, we're not going to eradicate it. I don't try and do that for, you know, 50 years. We're not going to eradicate it. Why don't we just say, okay, screw it. We're going to legalize it and tax the hell out of it. And, you know, same with the separate tax and other things. But the issue is that you have to decide this is the right thing to do. And Kendra Crochet said this is about freedom. It's about the freedom to stay here in West Virginia. And if you don't do this, people are not free to stay here. People are going to leave. We're going to lose all our best people. And we're still not going to have health care. So thank you.
You're next, followed by Mary. Mary, I can't make out your last name. She left. Yes. Sarah left?
Yes.
Mary, are you here?
Is it Mary Ellen Carr?
Mara will be it. Yes. It is that.
I win! Thank you for coming. Thank you. I am proud to be a teacher because my students are the future. I'm a third-generation teacher. I grew up in Morgantown. My grandmother graduated from WVU, and she was a teacher. My dad, Tom Mara, some of you may have known him. Some of you were coached by him in baseball. He was a teacher. He retired. I now teach in Harrison County. I've been teaching for over 10 years. I teach art at a middle school, which means I also teach self-esteem, because I get the kids that aren't necessarily achieving at higher levels, and I show them what they can achieve. I went to the Charleston rallies, and when it came time to stand on our line, I wasn't able to because I was orchestrating and organizing the Harrison County food drive for the kids, because some of our kids don't get baths every week. We are a free and reduced lunch school. We're a Title I school. We're a low-income school. And we have some of the most amazing kids. We really do. I have written a grant, and this is the second year that I've taken the kids for a free end-of-the-year field trip, because the field trip that's offered by the school is to Kennywood and they have to pay for it. But some of the kids, that's just not possible. So we go to Falling Water. which sounds like, oh, you know, it's an extension of the classroom, but it is an extension of the classroom. It's like, if you don't know Falling Water by Frank Lloyd Wright, it's built on a waterfall. Like, the floor of the house is the rock of the waterfall. It's totally cool. And so this year, 25 kids, thanks to the grant. Last year, 50 kids got to go free of charge on a full-day field trip. The food was from the school, and since it's free reduced lunch, they didn't pay for that either. So it was a wonderful thing. I just, 3 weeks ago, completed my last component for a national board certification. I love my job. I'm divorced, which is a good thing, actually. Mother of two, a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. We are 3 years away, hopefully still 3-year plan, to get a little house of our own. I finished paying off the car. I'll finish paying off the student loan in 21. Next week, I go for a biopsy for a very aggressive cancer that will take chemo. And today, our last day for our students is next week, it's Monday. One of the kids, because I wasn't right there to say goodbye, one of the kids whose last day was today left me a note. This kid got in trouble a lot, which are some of my favorite kids. He wrote, "I heart you," and on the back it said, "You never gave up on me." Should I be looking for jobs in Virginia? You see what I mean? Like this is a situation, and I know you all understand the situation because this is a task force. This is what you're doing. You're trying to solve the situation. But I want to take care of my kids, but I also need to take care of my 2 kids. So I don't know if I should be looking for jobs in another state because I didn't budget for cancer. So this is the situation. I would love to stay here. And I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you very much.
Up next is Stacy North, and then follow Stacy would be Dave. Yeah, David. Dave.
Okay.
David? I think it's him.
My name's Stacy North. I am a retired social worker from GHR. After 27 years, I covered Barbara, Preston, Taylor, Grant, Hardy, Pendleton, Tucker, and sometimes Ayers. And I love West Virginia. But as a social worker, I think that PEIA needs to take a look at mental health. The coverage is very poor, and we need to stop treating mental health as a character flaw and start treating it as an illness. I had staff that worked under very stressful conditions that could have used some help and wasn't able to get that, or they weren't able to continue because it's bundled and you only get so many appointments a year. So that's something in terms of coverage that I would like PEIA to try and look at and change. Particularly with the opioid crisis the way it is now, it's bundled under mental health, and it's not a character flaw, it's an illness. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I have the lady who took my job is pregnant. She just was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. She's not able to take her medication because PEIA won't pay for the kind of medication, she explained this to me, the kind of medication that doesn't cross the placenta. They will only pay for the kind that does. She's a high-risk pregnancy. They'll only pay for 1 ultrasound. She needs multiple ultrasounds. It just doesn't make sense to me that they would not pay for those things because in the long run, they're going to be paying for that kid. If that kid is hurt while it's in utero, when it comes out, it's going to cost more money. I don't understand that theory. nor do I understand the deny, delay, defend defense, which is they deny your payment, then they delay it, then they defend why they're delaying it, and if you keep after it long enough, they'll pay it. But most people don't keep after it, they just give up. So that needs to be looked at. Now, the other thing is that my friend Bill Weiss gave me something to read, and I have a copy. He has lots of ideas, as you can see, on how to pay for PEIA. So he believes we should remove all PEIA premiums, co-pays, and deductibles for members forever. All revenue, yeah, I think that's a great idea. All revenue increases must be sufficiently explained and introduced incrementally to gain and maintain public support. We need to collect sufficient tax revenue to fully fund PEIA expenses annually and for the future. We need to collect sufficient additional revenue to build a reserve fund to keep PEIA fully funded in case of a 20-year recession in West Virginia. Increase revenue collections to offset annual inflation, and the funding sources must be inclusive, collect revenue from many sources, including all West Virginians benefit from public employee services, which is certainly true whether they believe it or not. Thus, all taxpayers must contribute their fair share. Place a dedicated index tax on the West Virginia income tax for PEIA. Increase property taxes mainly on natural energy resources, including timber, oil, coal, gas, water, limestone, and all underground natural resources and associated byproducts. Increase severance taxes considerably on all energy assets and other mineral resources removed from above and below the surface land of West Virginia. Place increased dedicated sin taxes on all tobacco, narcotic, and marijuana, alcohol, sugary, and energy beverage drinks to decrease the use of unhealthy products, which will eventually drive up PEIA costs. Revenues will be divided between educational programs to decrease usage and help fund PEIA. Place new and additional toll taxes on all interstate highways to tax all vehicles, especially multi-axle trucks entering and leaving West Virginia. Provide an easy pass discount to West Virginia citizens so we don't have to pay that extra tax. Develop a plan to tax all natural energy resources and minerals obtained in West Virginia and sent out of state, including natural and liquefied gas, oil, water, timber, limestone, electricity, and associated byproducts. Develop a plan to provide revenue to PEIA similar to the existing federal plan on very high income individuals and families to help fund Medicare. Certainly, E. Gordon Gee and Bobby Huggins can pay more than much lower paid WVU employees. It's only just. And can we also include the governor, since he too is a West Virginia state employee? So that gives you a lot of things to think about. Oh, sure. I would also like to point out that the voucher plan for retirees is stupid, dumb. Please don't do that. The voucher plan. Hey, people think that they can get a better deal. They can't do that. They're never going to get a better deal. They're always going to end up paying more. They're always going to screw you after you give them their money. They're going to need more. Don't do that. And please, 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 now that I'm retired, take care of your retirees.
Dave Haven, did I get your name right, Dave Haven? And then up next after Dave will be Mary Ellen Kahn.
Dave Hauser from Morgantown. I'm close. Thank you all for coming and staying on Friday. I'll just be real short. Have you looked to see how other states have funded their public employee insurance programs? Yeah. Have you looked at the states around us? Have you benchmarked West Virginia against other states? I know the PEI system is different. We have many more tiers than many of the other states. We have different co-pays, different pockets. Some of those other states may have good ideas. Maybe they don't. But,
let me just address that really quickly because there's some great information on that. In the initial PEI, the
kickoff meeting, Director Cheatham presented, and it's online, you can go view it and so forth. It's a great question about benchmarking and so forth. And there's a good amount of information in there about how we compare with other states. Particularly, what you'll find in a lot of states, they don't provide the insurance. It's more at the county level or the municipal level. So just wanted to input that.
Sure. The general is just that they have some good ideas, and you can see what you can and make a system work efficiently.
Yeah. Thanks.
Com's gone. Moving on, Alicia Kinsey.
Being a teacher, I feel like everybody needs to get up and stretch. You can't. You're not gonna like fit me at all. If you guys need to get up and stretch, everyone's like yawning and like. I know it's really hard. I'm going to try to be brief. I just have to say that I'm also from the same hometown as Senator Carmichael.
Well, you say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, Mitch, you tell me.
Let's talk.
Okay, let's talk. I'm going to tell you, try to be really brief when everybody's tired and wants to go home. When my colleague Adam King presented the PEIA information in January, it hit my stomach really hard because as a part-time public school teacher, I still work every day, but I go in at 11:45 to 3:30. My paychecks are small. I have my master's plus 30. My take-home pay would become extremely small if the current plan moves forward. Without fully allocating the money to PEIA, it would put a financial stress on a lot of families, including mine. My husband is a full-time farmer with his master's degree in reproduction physiology. So let's just make sure he's highly educated. And if this plan is implemented, not only will my paychecks be affected, but also our farm. If this plan moves forward, my husband would have to give me money from the farm to make it worthwhile for me to work. Wrap your head around that. He would have to pay me to teach the future of West Virginia. He runs over 200 head of cattle. We produce beef and seed stock to continue agriculture in West Virginia and America. My husband and I have the honor of being the 5th generation to farm our farm. Being a teacher and my husband a full-time farmer, we are the minority. I believe my husband and I are part of the foundation on which America was built, agriculture and education. If you do not find the money to help fund PEIA, then you will not only be hurting the future of education, but also the future of agriculture in West Virginia. Thank you in advance for taking the time to listen with an open mind. I hope you choose to support teachers and farmers. They truly are the foundation of it all. And with that being said, I just want to say that it breaks my heart when I say to a student at Bridgeport High School, oh, so-and-so, you would be a wonderful teacher. They go, Mrs. Kinsey, I'm sorry. My dad says I can't be a teacher because they don't make enough money. You're losing people who would be amazing teachers. I do it because I love it. I love making a difference. You all work with the public. You must love helping people too. Please try to find a way to make this better. Thank you.
Danielle Walker.
Good evening. I am Danielle Walker. I am from Monongalia County. I would like to say thank you to each and every one of you for being here. I'm a mother of 2 young special need young men who depend on education at a high school level and also a collegiate level. I'm an everyday working person that works 3 jobs. My day starts at 3 a.m. And I'm also a candidate for District 51 House of Delegates. 55 has illustrated strength and unity through our labor unions. All of us stood together on the lines with educators, and with service personnel, but we represented all state public employees. And that's what I want each and every one of you to do. Represent all of us. I am pleading with you to find funds for PEIA because I'm not in Charleston yet, but November 6th is coming. Please, West Virginia, we say our children are our future, but we need to find a way to keep our children here. We need to find a way to keep the educators here. We need to find a way to keep our police officers here. We need to find a way to keep our elected officials here. We need to find a way to keep our DOH workers here. We need to find a way to keep our social workers here, because we keep growing in numbers and we're first, but we're not first for anything good. We're number one in the addiction crisis because it's more than opioids, because we allowed those farmers to come in here and infiltrate the streets with these drugs. And somebody's pockets got bigger, but evidently it wasn't the people in this room. And the time is now that we take a stand and we make those differences. Almost heaven, West Virginia. Almost heaven. That's a broad statement, especially from someone who's not originally from here, but chose to stay. So I was that Louisiana who changed my driver's license, who changed my car registration, who used all the programs in West Virginia as a hand up and not a hand out. So we're able and we're capable, but we have to start thinking outside of the box. We are still fired up. The world was watching and they took notes. They put West Virginia back on the map. And they're still watching. So let us be the first to take this as a forefront and put our educators, put our bus personnel, put those secretaries that is with my special needs children day in and day out. Let West Virginia and Mountaineers continue to educate and elevate. The time is now. West Virginia is first. And it's time that we start investing in our everyday working people. It's time that we start investing in our low and middle class persons. It's time that we start investing in our unhealthy communities. How could you hear these stories and your eyes not weep? How could you hear these stories and your heart not break? How could you hear these stories and walk out of here in a clear mind? What makes us similar is that we're all human. What makes us different is that we're people. And I hope everyone in this room is a person. But we're united as one and we become people. I am more than a constituent. See, I'm a voter. I'm a voice for the voiceless. I am a Mountaineer, and Mountaineers are free. So please stop imprisoning healthcare. Danielle Walker, thank you.
I like all of that. Oh my God. Oh, I'm nervous. I am just, come on, a teacher, a concerned citizen. So my worries is for the children. I grew up in Michigan. I moved to Maryland. I worked there in the foster care system for 15 years. Came to Maryland, or came to West Virginia wondering what was I going to be when I grow up. And I decided to go be a teacher. I worry about these students. I worry about the retired citizens. I worry about the health care that people are complaining about. I'm very fortunate. My husband carries my insurance, so I'm not in the boat that they're in. But it's a disaster, and it needs to be fixed. And I worry that if we don't do something, the 55 strong is going to unite again. I started out, I was not going to walk that picket line. I didn't have a clue what it was about. And when I heard the stories, I said, I have to do
And I'm here, and I can't believe I'm even talking because I don't want to talk. But just know they're not going away. They need it fixed. They need something to happen. They need for the legislators to be united. They need to be 55 strong, not just us. So please hear the concerns. I see every day. I've been teaching for only 13 years, and I've brought up quite a few young teachers, and probably within the last 8 years, every single one that I've had in my class that I've trained, that I've worked with them, they've moved. My last one, I'm connected with them all. I still reach out to them. They're in Texas, they're in South Carolina, they're in North Carolina, my last one I just had this year, she moved to Maryland, making $51,000 a year with great medical benefits. She Skyped my kids the last day of school and said she wished she could stay. Her family's from Buchanan. So hear the concerns. They really need your help.
That's the last one that we have that has marked yes. No, it's not. John Williams.
I apologize for the mistake. I had forgotten to check the box. My name is John Williams. I'm a delegate from Montague County's 51st District, where we are right now. But I'm not here as a delegate. I'm here as a friend to Montague County teachers, as a former student of Montague County teachers. You know, Tammy, who just spoke, I was friends with her daughters in school. I've had 3 teachers who are here who taught me, and a couple of them here I've gone to high school with. So this is an issue that's extremely important to me. And what an opportunity this is. This is democracy in action, but what else would you expect from the people who led the historic 55-strong walkout to ensure that they could potentially have better benefits? They got a raise, but they didn't get benefits. And unfortunately, that's what it was all about from the beginning. I don't want to double down on too many things that have been said, but when you look at this as a spectrum, I think it's terribly important that we keep our retirees in mind. This past legislative session, there was some effort to do away with the business inventory tax. Our retirees who are on a fixed income would have seen their property taxes skyrocket as a result of that bill. Fixed income, we need to look out for them. It's been said many times that it's about priorities. Well, if you look at someone's checkbook, you can certainly tell where their priorities lie. And right now, unfortunately, I don't think that our public employees rank too high on that list, unfortunately. I talked about our retirees, and that takes me to the other end of the spectrum, our young people. The people that I know that I went to high school with, I ask them seriously, and I'm not being cynical, I say, why do you teach in West Virginia? Why do you do it when continuously it seems as if you're getting having people turn their back on you, if not spit in your face with the disrespect that you were given for the important job that you have? Now, I understand that this committee's job is to relay important things to the legislature, and fortunately we have one of those cogs in the wheel here, Mr. President. Cog in the wheel. Now, when I say that, what I mean to say is that we need people who are interested in listening to the recommendations made by this body, and I implore you to do everything that you can to relay that message to the legislature so that we may act for these people to do right by them so that they might feel thankful for what they do for our children on a daily basis. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
I think that is the last. Has everyone said what we want everybody to be able to speak? If you have something you want to say, if you want to bring something to our attention, is everyone? Okay.
Can I say one thing really quick?
Yes.
I'll be super short. I wasn't going to talk, so I'm Stephanie Zucker, running for Senate 14. And the one thing I didn't hear brought up today that I've been thinking a lot about on the trail, and I'm sure you think about all the time, is the addiction epidemic we've got. We're covering 1 in 9 West Virginians on PEIA. We could make a real difference in the addiction crisis if we really were treating addiction like a medical disease and treating it like the emergency it is, and treating pain as a real issue, not just with opiates, because when it costs people $50 for a PT appointment, or they're only allowed to have 20 PT appointments, or they have a $200 copay to get that steroid injection in their joint,
that could deal with the pain, a lot of people are making decisions to stay on the opioids in the past because they could not afford the alternatives because we're making those things too expensive. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a healthcare expert. You guys probably aren't either, right? But they're out there. You? Okay, great. All right, so, let's figure out what the very best protocols are, and let's make PEIA express those best protocols so that we can make a real difference with our healthcare and reducing our opiate problems. So, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me say this before everybody runs out the door, and then I'll give my colleagues here a chance to say what they need to say. You can comment on the Facebook page and also the website. You can make comments. If you leave here today and say, oh, I wish I would have said that, you can comment on the Facebook page and the website. You can do that. Also, you have the little pieces of paper, what do they call them things? Surveys, yeah, that's it. You can fill out the surveys. If you didn't get a survey, we can get you one here. And before I close, let me say this. It was mentioned a while ago that a lot of people think that this is a horse and pony show or dog and puppy show or whatever. But and let me be very clear in what I'm going to say here. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think this is a horse and pony show. I'm going to do all that I can to relay every message that we have heard around this state. That's what I signed up to do, and that's what I will do. And I do know that there's several of my colleagues that is sitting on this outreach that's going to do the same thing. Where it's going to go from there, I only hope and pray that it goes as far as we can get it. But let me be very clear in saying, as far as I'm concerned, I will carry that message.
And I know that he will, which is appropriate. I just want to kind of reset and just with a couple of comments, because there's been a lot of criticism as well as concern addressed and solutions offered. Well, one of the things I think it's important to realize the context. And I feel some of the direct criticism of this, but frankly, I walked in the door a year and a half ago and confronted with a $300 million budget deficit. And this year, for the first year in about 5 or 6 years, because of some of the changes that have occurred, we're going to meet our budget projections. We're going to meet them. In fact, I brought the numbers with me. We're about $20 million ahead. Less than 1% ahead, but we're ahead. Now, contrast that with a $300 million budget deficit last year. And so here we are, we've got a little money. We've got a little money, and we put $30 million into the PEIA fund to stabilize that, and so that there would be no increases. So your health care costs will not go up next year. Then, because we recognize that public employees are underpaid, and we took action on very early on the corrections officers. We gave them some of the raises that they need and put in a multi-year raise for them. And our prisons are in horrible conditions. We need to do much more. So then we put in place the largest pay raise in state history for public employees that didn't include a tax increase on West Virginians. So we're trying, I want you to view us as partners in this progress that we're trying to elevate your compensation package, which includes not only retirement, because we've been, for those of you who understand the retirement systems, we've had the worst retirement funding in the nation in our teachers' retirement system, and we've, through the efforts of previous legislatures, Mike Oliveri and others, have worked diligently to try to move that, and now we're about 60 to 70% funded. It's a great success story. It cost us about $400 million a year to bring that back up, and it's a multi-year commitment. But, you know, I think there's a lot of vitriolic criticism about the system, and I get it. We've talked about this. There's customer service issues. There's health care in America is evolving, and it's changing, and it's escalating. And we're asking West Virginia to solve it in our state. And it's tough to do, but we're trying. We're working with you. We're outreach on how many different, 22 of these? 21. We've got 2 or 3 left. 2 more. So, and I've taken into account every one of these suggestions. The raise on tobacco tax, we did that 3 years ago. And we're going to do more. I've been a big advocate for raising tobacco taxes. I hear people talk about the food tax. I'm not on board with that. But, and then the gas severance tax, we've talked about that. We've talked about sin taxes, other things. We're going to work together to solve this. And so I just want to share with you that, we're not the devil. We just walked in the door and we're handed this long-term, structurally unsound program that we're trying to fix. And so we want to work with you, not in opposition, but in partnership, together to move the state forward. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been a great experience for me.
I just want to say, as an educator, 38 years experience, it's a pleasure for me. It's a pleasure for me to participate, to have the opportunity to participate. This is the first time in my career that I felt like that we've had a real buy-in to be able to be a part of something. And I know my colleagues that are on this committee are very, very dedicated to hearing what you say and take this information back so that with the whole task force, hopefully, something can be done. My reason for doing this is because of those people behind me. I could be retired. I've chosen not to yet because I want to stay and help as much as I can before I leave. I have grandchildren that'll go through this system. That's important to me. It's important people can stay and live in West Virginia. That's my reason for serving. And I appreciate you all giving up your time to come because without your input, we don't know what all the issues are. And so please encourage folks that couldn't be here tonight, as Mr. White said, to get online and put it out there. We need to know. We only know what we're told. So thank you guys for coming and for hanging in there.
I guess I get the last word. Great. First of all, it is true about the retirement system and that you have continued to fund it, but it took a lawsuit to force the legislature to do that. So let's just make that clear. And it has taken an action of educators across the state to bring this to the forefront. This is important that you come out. It is important that we have the voices heard. Our pledge to you is that you see us take notes, and the governor's office is reviewing all the tapes. Every one of them is on there. They're categorizing everything that's said. I think when all this is done, I will have attended 10 or 11 of the 21. But it's because we want to ensure that our voices are heard. Our voices will be heard at the full full task force meeting. We will make recommendations, many that you've suggested. We have heard so many things that just are mind-blowing to us that need to be fixed. Our pledge to you is that your voices are important and your voices will be heard, and we will continue to push for these fixes in this plan. So thank you so much for coming.